Anurag. It is indeed a pleasure to be delivering a lecture, I would say, on a very dry subject like standards on auditing. And I can see Arunji already smiling on that. Friends, I indeed say that it is dry, क्योंकि इसमें क्या होता है that when we talk of accounting standards, typically what happens is that there we are doing the recognition measurement numbers से हम लोग खेलते हैं, and there are a lot of disclosure requirements. क्लाइंट्स को भी प्रॉफिट कितना है, रेशियोज कितना है, क्या है, वो इनकम टैक्स वाले को, जीएसटी वाले को भी वो सबसे काफी फर्क पड़ता है, और हमारा बिलिंग भी जो होता है क्लाइंट से वो सब उसी पे डिपेंड करता है on what are the accounting standards and all. And since that is applicable to all, everybody looks at it. That is also our focus area. But when it comes to audit standards or standards on auditing, what happens is that we are the ones who are the only persons responsible. तो हम लोग जैसे वो डेमोक्रेसी में बोलते हैं ना, वैसा इसका है, that it is of the firm, by the firm and for the firm. ऐसा है on the standards on audit, and therefore that is one area where either I would say we get a bit casual. I would not say कि हम लोग compliance नहीं करते हैं. हम लोग I very strongly believe that my interaction with so many friends, chartered accountants, that everybody does the compliance, but जो proper way में compliance उसका होना चाहिए वो नहीं होता है. And therefore my I would say endeavor today would be as a small and medium practitioner, where it is like a CA की proprietorship firm है, 2 partner है, 3 partner है, ये size की जो firms है, and who are catering typically a majority उसके clients जो small and medium enterprises है, उसके लिए there are some very elementary basic documentation requirement which I will try to share. And what I would look forward is that in case आपको लगता है कि भाई ये आप ऑफिस में follow कर रहे हैं but not in such a structured way, then maybe you can start that. And if you are not following, I would request, I would suggest that please आप उसको थोड़ा time दीजिए, efforts दीजिए and follow करिए, तो that would be really helpful for you as a practice unit. Right. So the topic that we would be discussing today is standards on auditing implementation by the small and medium practitioners. Friends, मेरी एक request और भी है before we actually go into the technical aspects of these standards and all. One is that standards on audit, and I would request Ishwar Bhai and the Surat branch to take the initiative that kindly form a study group of members, maybe उसमें 20-25 ही members हो, but who are really interested. See, I'll tell you उसका क्या impact आ सकता है, most probably, is that what happens is that ये लोग जब मिलते हैं 20-25 जन, they would discuss a standard. See, there are almost 40 plus standards. I'm not saying कि आप सब discuss करिए, but those which are relevant, those which are applicable to you as a practice unit, as a group, आप उसको discuss करिए. And you also try to bring about कि भाई हम लोग इसके लिए ये process implement करेंगे हमारी offices में, या ये documentation हम लोग follow करेंगे. So what happens in that process, that 20, 25, 30 firms, chartered accountants जो भी है, उनकी जो firms है, उसमें they would be able to come up with some such standard documentation requirement, which can again be circulated to any, so if each one circulates to another 5, 10, 15, so it has a multiplier effect. So my earnest request is that don't neglect this area. अभी regulators और सभी काफी strict हो गए हैं इस पे, and with peer review and also all those things, with respect to investigative agencies, I believe that we have to ensure that our documentation, our filing system is up to mark. Another thing I would request is that जो audit report हम लोग sign कर रहे हैं, right, 4-5 पेज का ऑडिट रिपोर्ट होता है, तो हम लोग जब साइन करते हैं, हम लोग लास्ट पेज में देख लेते हैं फर्म नेम, चार्टर्ड अकाउंटेंट्स विशाल पी दोषी, मेरा नाम आ गया है, पार्टनर, मेंबरशिप नंबर सब सही है, और मैं साइन कर देता हूँ. माय अर्नेस्ट रिक्वेस्ट टू ऑल माय फ्रेंड्स ओवर हियर इज एक बार आप पूरा ऑडिट रिपोर्ट जो है ना, वो वर्ड टू वर्ड पढ़िए और समझिए कि आप जब ऑडिट रिपोर्ट साइन कर रहे हैं तो व्हाट आर द असर्शंस दैट यू आर गिविंग एज एन ऑडिटर. that you are saying कि भाई मैंने ये follow किया है, मैंने ये comply किया है, इसमें कोई error नहीं है, fraud नहीं है, and you know all those things you are giving as a certification by way of your audit report. और फिर एक रिफ्लेक्ट बैक करिए कि मैं इतना जो सर्टिफिकेशन कर रहा हूँ उसके रिलेटेड आज कोई मेरे को पूछता है कि भाई इसके क्या है आपके पास, तो उसका मेरे पास सपोर्टिंग क्या है विच आई कैन शो टू whoever asks me. आई विल जस्ट से द रिवर्स वे. हम लोग जब क्लाइंट के वहां पे जाते हैं तो कोई भी एंट्री होता है, कुछ भी होता है, हम उसको पूछते हैं भाई तुम्हारा इसका सपोर्टिंग क्या है, इसका डॉक्यूमेंटेशन क्या है, कॉन्ट्रैक्ट है, अग्रीमेंट है, परचेज ऑर्डर है, गुड्स रिसीट नोट है. तो वी आस्क एन नंबर ऑफ थिंग्स कि भाई इसके सपोर्टिंग में आपके पास क्या क्या है, आप दिखाइए, एंड देन ओनली वी आर सेटिस्फाइड कि भाई आपने जो एंट्री किया वो सही है. उसी का मिरर इमेज आप लीजिए कि जब आपके ऑडिट रिपोर्ट, आप जब बोल रहे हो कि ये मेरा ऑडिट रिपोर्ट है, ट्रू एंड फेयर व्यू है, तो उसके लिए आपने क्या क्या डॉक्यूमेंटेशन किया है, आपने क्या क्या स्टैंडर्ड्स ऑन ऑडिट का कंप्लायंस किया है, वो आप प्रूफ दीजिए तो आप कितना दे सकेंगे. सो आई वुड लाइक यू टू जस्ट रिफ्लेक्ट दैट हम लोग जब ये डिस्कशन कर रहे हैं, जस्ट गो बैक एंड थिंक इफ सच अ क्वेश्चन इज आस्क्ड टू यू, यू बिकम द ऑडिटी एंड योर ऑडिट रिपोर्ट इज अंडर ऑडिट, तो आप उसका कितना सेटिस्फैक्शन आप कर पाएंगे. So when we come to the standards on audit, this is the broad layout of the standards with respect to the historical financial information. And आप डरिए मत, ऐसा नहीं है कि मैं 900 स्टैंडर्ड्स की बात कर रहा हूँ या another 500-600 another standards, ऐसा कुछ नहीं है. These are basically broad buckets or baskets in which the standards are aligned. ICI is a part of the international, is a member of the international account setting standard setting body, and therefore what is required for it is that usko bhi they have to follow the international practices और उस हिसाब से buckets बनाए. If I say that first bucket of 100 to 199 200 standard के जो है उसमें अभी कोई भी standard notified नहीं है, and then there are the rest of the buckets जिसमें 5, 10, 15 ऐसे standards are notified. So we'll move on. And friends, today what I would be sharing, I would not be taking all the standards in detail. In fact, whatever standards I would be taking, I would not be going into that much in detail. I would just try to give an overview, and I would just try to explain that how best in our offices we can set up the practices by which we can improve the whole audit process. The quality improves, and very important, what I always want is that our professionals, brothers and sisters जो है, जो partner proprietors है, वो जब audit report sign कर रहे हैं, तो in the whole process उनका time minimum कैसे जाए और कितना process आ सके within the office. That is what I would like to engage into this. Anurag would be taking a couple of standards in detail, so that I would not be touching upon. And so we start our journey. So first of all, हम लोग जब audit कर रहे हैं, audit report में भी जो लिख रहे हैं, what is our overall objective as an auditor? So the standard says that we have to obtain reasonable assurance that the financial statements as a whole are free from material misstatements. और material misstatement जो है वो fraud से भी हो सकता है, error से भी हो सकता है. So you are saying कि भाई all these standards, all these financial statements जो भी है, they are free from material misstatements. और वो opinion जो आपको express करना है, वो उसके लिए आपके लिए जो भी documentation है, that you are supposed to communicate and you are supposed to write in your audit report that you have complied with all the standards on auditing and all the related stuff. So the overall objective remains that to obtain reasonable assurance, to express an opinion that the financial statements are prepared in all material respect in accordance with the reporting framework, and to report on the financial statements. तो आपको एक बार assurance मिल गया, आपको comfort मिल गया, तो उसके ऊपर आपको report issue करना है, and as per the standards on audit आपको report उसका issue करना है. So this is the overall objective of the auditor. Now हम लोग बोलते हैं कि भाई standards on audit mandatory है, तो वो कहाँ पे लिखा है? It is in SA 200. So SA 200 very clearly says that as an auditor, you will comply with all the standards on audit relevant to the audit. So you have no choice, but आपको इसके साथ compliance करना है. You as an auditor, you will also have an understanding of the entire text of a standard on audit. तो पूरा standard on audit भी आपको, you should know कि भाई इस कौन से standard में मेरे को क्या करना है. And you will not represent compliance unless as an auditor you have complied with all the requirements of the standard. तो कोई भी स्टैंडर्ड का, बिकॉज मैंने जैसे बोला ऑडिट रिपोर्ट आप जब पढ़ेंगे तो आप ऑडिट रिपोर्ट में भी अश्योरेंसेस देते हैं कि हमने स्टैंडर्ड्स और ऑडिट के हिसाब से हमने ऑडिट किया है, वी हैव डन ऑल द कंप्लायंसेस, वी हैव डन दिस दैट ऑल दोस थिंग्स, यू आर गिविंग अश्योरेंस अंडर द स्टैंडर्ड ऑन ऑडिट. But when you actually see that you cannot represent a compliance unless you have actually complied with it. So what I would suggest as a mechanism that you can have is I'll just share a checklist. एक PDF फाइल है जो आपके स्क्रीन पे आई होगी अभी. So this what I would suggest is you can have for each of your client every year. आप आपकी जो टीम है, आर्टिकल असिस्टेंट्स है, पेड स्टाफ है, नॉन सीए है, जो भी है, whoever is in charge of a particular audit, आप उनको बोलिए कि every year ये जो आपका checklist है on quality control, engagement standards on audit, they should fill this up whether a particular standard is applicable to an entity or not. इससे क्या होगा that when we are saying that as per that standard on audit which we saw right now, that you have to ensure that you have complied with it, then how do you ensure? So this is the first thing. और इसमें क्या होता है that it just by filling up this document, this sheet, it does not end. आपके पास जब बैलेंस शीट आती है, कुछ भी आता है साइन ऑफ के लिए, you have to review this and maybe you can ask a couple of questions to that team कि भाई इसमें आपने क्या किया है. जैसे मैं एक सिंपल एग्जांपल लूं कि भाई ऐसे 510 इनिशियल ऑडिट एंगेजमेंट्स ओपनिंग बैलेंसेस, राइट. तो कोई क्लाइंट जब नया है, फर्स्ट टाइम है, तब ये स्टैंडर्ड आपका एप्लीकेबल होगा, यू हैव टू से यस. बट इफ अ क्लाइंट रिकरिंग ऑडिट है, लास्ट ईयर भी आपने ऑडिट किया, इस साल भी आप ऑडिट कर रहे हैं, तो देन दिस शुड बी नो. सो मे बी यू कैन आस्क अ कपल ऑफ क्वेश्चंस टू दैट टीम कि इसमें आपने क्या किया है. जैसे मैं एक सिंपल एग्जांपल लूं. हाँ, यस. Yeah, so what happens is that based on that you can ask questions to the team. जैसे मैंने बोला related party है, subsequent events है, going concern है, so अभी भी जैसे COVID-19 situation में you can always ask कि भाई subsequent events क्या है. There is a standard also on that 560 जो है, तो अगर वो applicable में yes लिख रहे हैं तो you can always question कि भाई ये client में subsequent में आपने क्या देखा है. So with that, what would happen that there would be a lot of transparency. एक process बन जाएगा कि भी standards on audit का compliance किया है कि नहीं किया है with respect to each and every standard. जैसे again there would be some which would not be applicable. जैसे जिसमें internal audit नहीं है, तो using the work of internal auditor में no आ जाएगा, work of another auditor no आ जाएगा, auditors expert में भी no आ जाएगा, key audit matters अगर listed company नहीं है तो उसमें भी no आ जाएगा. But जिसमें yes आ रहा है तो उसके basis पे भी you can realize कि ये सब स्टैंडर्ड्स में यस आ रहे हैं across all your clients, and what are the documentation, what are the processes that we are following to ensure compliance with that particular standards on audit. So this would help you in complying with overall all these standards as well as SA 200. And you shall also, like the fourth bullet, it says that as an auditor you shall comply with each requirement of a standard on audit unless the standard is not applicable or the requirement is not relevant because वो particular aspect वो client के case में, वो audit के case में applicable नहीं है. So, but overall what remains is that it is mandatory for you to comply with all the standards on audit which are relevant to the audit. Friends, we come to the next standard for which I'll take an overview is on the engagement letter. You must be aware that between you and the client as such there is no contract, there is no written contract or anything कि भाई क्या है क्या नहीं है. So this engagement letter is like a contract between the two parties, auditor and auditee, where कि भाई management की क्या responsibilities है, auditor की क्या responsibilities है, कौन से framework से आपको certify करना है, आपका deliverable क्या होगा, audit report होगा, क्या होगा. So you can have a reference to the expected form and content to any report. So what happens is that it becomes like a contract between the two, and I'll just share one engagement letter for you to. And friends, engagement letter क्या होता है कि भाई you might be thinking कि अभी समझिए मैं 200 audits कर रहा हूँ, तो अभी engagement letter कौन बनाएगा हर साल इतने सारे clients का, and it is a difficult task. Friends, let me tell you, engagement letter is something which you don't have to prepare every year. What is required is that आपने एक बार बना दिया, वही recurring audit है, then आपको every year बनाना नहीं है. but I'll take you through the engagement letter, that this is supposed to be on your letterhead as a chartered accountant, as the auditor. This has to be on your letterhead, and it is addressed to the client, to your to the company, या proprietorship concern है या partnership firm है, जो भी है आप उनको address कर रहे हैं this engagement letter. So the background is that कि भाई ये किसका है, आपने कि भाई client ने आपका appointment किया है under the Companies Act, because this is for a company, be it a private limited or a listed company. And so you are saying that our audit will be conducted with the objectives of expresses and opinion, कि भाई हम लोग क्या करने वाले हैं, what is the objective of the audit, what is the objective of this engagement letter, that everything gets listed out. Then you are also saying, you are informing the client before the start of the audit, or engagement letter should be signed off before you start the audit, that and you are saying that we will conduct our audit as per the standards on audit as of the ICI, and that you plan and perform the audit to obtain reasonable assurance whether they are free from material misstatement. तो आप क्या reporting करने वाले हैं, आप क्या compliance के लिए आप क्या audit कर रहे हैं, all those things get listed in a standard engagement letter. You are also saying that, see, like we said, हम लोग audit करते हैं 100% of vouching और कुछ करते नहीं है, and therefore there are always these risks, there are inherent risks that might remain due to the course of audit that we. So आप engagement letter में you mentioned that very categorically that there are some inherent limitations of an audit, and there is an unavoidable risk that material misstatement due to fraud or error may occur and not be detected, right? तो आप पहले से ही clear कर रहे हो that in spite of you exercising full diligence, in spite of you planning your audit properly, performing it properly, complying with all the standards on audit, then also there are chances that material misstatements due to fraud and error may not be detected, and therefore you are making your stand very clear at the beginning of the audit itself. Then you are also talking about the management responsibilities, के management की क्या responsibility है. So first is with respect to the preparation of financial statements that give a true and fair view in accordance with the applicable reporting framework standards, and compliance with the law है, proper maintenance of books of account है, responsibility for preparation of financial statements on going concern, annual accounts. So all these things, even selection of accounting policies and applying them consistently. See, आप ऐसा बोलेंगे कि proprietorship, partnership clients है हमारे, small and medium enterprise है, ये सब तो हम ही करते हैं उनके लिए. I agree, I appreciate, but under the law, it is the primary responsibility is that of the client and not yours. And therefore, this engagement letter makes it very clearly. So if you are again deciding on certain accounting policies, practices, and principles, that is on behalf of the client that you are doing, that is not as an auditor that you are doing. And therefore, it becomes very important that all these things are made clear in the engagement letter itself. Identifying and informing of any adverse effect about certain transactions, then pending litigations. हम लोग जो contingent में दिखाते हैं, समझे कोई notice वगैरह आया है और clients आपको नहीं देते हैं, then how would you show that there is a contingent liability? So there is also this responsibility is cast on the client by way of the engagement letter, that all these are the responsibility of the client. Even with respect to giving access, to all the books of account, vouchers, that is also the client's responsibility. All records, subsidiaries जो है, अगर joint ventures group है पूरा, तो उसके भी जो भी records है, any additional information that we may request from the management. So unrestricted access to persons within the company. अगर हमको query पूछने जाना है, वो समझिए manufacturing unit है, तो मेरे को production head से बात करनी है, मेरे को HR head से बात करनी है, then I would, as an auditor, the management would give me unrestricted access to all the persons within the company. So this is all about those roles and responsibilities of the auditee and the auditor that gets listed out, and therefore I'm saying that this is important, and you must ensure that you have a proper engagement letter for each of your client. And you are also saying that we will request a management confirmation letter, or the MRL that we say, management representation letter. Fees and billings, आप इसमें वो भी लिखते हो कि भाई you will, based on the time involved, you would be billing. Another important clause which you can include is about the liability of you as an auditor under an audit. So what happens is that what is mentioned in this format is that, unless you have as an auditor not been proactive, so there is some gross negligence or willful misconduct on your side, that is your firm side, So that has to be found out कि भाई आपका gross negligence या misconduct है कि नहीं. अगर नहीं है, then you would not be liable for anything under this audit, under this assignment. And that then also, if agar gross negligence, willful misconduct आपके team से हो जाता है, then also you are saying that the maximum liability would be to the extent of the fees that you have received for this service. तो आपका 100% fees जो है, that is what is the liability under this engagement letter, and anything beyond this is something that you would not agree to pay, or the client has to reimburse that to you if anything more than that comes up. And then this is signed by both the auditor and the auditee, and like I said, it is like in the nature of an understanding, a contract, and therefore it should be placed in your file. So you can have similar engagement letters for ये company का था, आप partnership का, tax audit का अलग उसी में modify करके whatever is the requirement, you can have the relevant engagement letters. So like I said, in case of recurring audits, अगर आपके पास audit 3 साल 4 साल आप वही audit client का audit कर रहे हैं, then you need not have to prepare an engagement letter every year. So my earnest request to all friends over here is that आप kindly, अभी ये जो लॉकडाउन की सिचुएशन है जहाँ पे वर्क फ्लो फ्रॉम दी क्लाइंट्स भी अभी डेटा और सब कुछ कम आ रहा है, काइंडली आपके ऑफिस में कोई भी टीम मेंबर है, बंदा है, उसको फॉर्मेट दे दीजिए एंगेजमेंट लेटर का. स्टैंडर्ड ऐसे 210 में भी उसके फॉर्मेट्स है दिए हुए, तो और वो फॉर्मेट देकर उनको बोलिए कि भाई आप सभी क्लाइंट का वो एंगेजमेंट लेटर बना दे, यू साइन, यू सेंड इट टू द क्लाइंट, साइन एंड पुट इट इन योर परमानेंट फाइल. Leadership responsibilities for quality on SA 220. This is something which says that as leaders, it is our responsibility to ensure that the audit quality is maintained and that it is implemented. And it is equally important for us to communicate within our firm that there would be no compromise as far as audit quality is concerned. In fact, I would go a step ahead that as a firm, there should be no compromise as far as quality of any of the service that we render is concerned, but specifically under standards on audit with respect to audit. So friends, here this is a very, very important statement and a very, very important standard, from the sense that it talks that as leaders, I'll just give a very simple example that last year we had from 1st July UDIN compulsory हो गया था, and the institute had said कि आप sign करने के 15 दिन तक UDIN generate कर सकते हैं. As a firm, we decided that we would not want to use those 15 days. वो तो फिर 30 days भी हो गया था window that the institute has given, and we started communicating with all our clients कि भाई आप financial statements, books of account audit के लिए आप जो भी है फटाफट दे दो, because we are not going to do any deviation as far as the date of the UDIN and the signing date is concerned. And this message was sent very, very clearly across all our clients, across the whole team. And I feel very satisfied in saying that in almost all the cases of our audits last year, we had the same date of signing and the same date that the UDIN was generated. Even as on today, if I say today we had a board meeting of a listed company, immediately we had done the UDIN generation. So what I'm trying to say is that at the top level, if you decide that there are certain quality processes that you would not compromise, certain documentation which you would not compromise, then it would be definitely happening in your office. It might take some time for things to settle down, but I am pretty confident, pretty sure that at the leadership level, if the quality statement is made, then that would be followed in word and spirit, and you would definitely save a lot of time. Friends, this image on this page is what describes everything for a standard on audit. The whole set, I would say. ये बाइबल जैसा है आपके लिए. आप ऑफिस में स्टेटमेंट लगा सकते हैं कि अगर कुछ भी डॉक्यूमेंट नहीं हुआ है उसका मतलब वो वर्क नहीं हुआ है. इट इज एज सिंपल एज दैट. एंड वी आर टॉकिंग स्पेसिफिक ऑन द ऑडिट असाइनमेंट्स दैट अगर आप बोल रहे हैं कि भाई ओपनिंग बैलेंस वेरिफिकेशन किया है तो उसका डॉक्यूमेंट क्या है, उसका एविडेंस क्या है, उसका प्रूफ क्या है. If it is not documented, there might be a statement also that on this particular date opening balance has been verified and it is to be found to be correct. So that is just a one-pager note and signed by the whosoever is the person responsible. That is a document that evidences the opening balance verification ho gaya hai. So this is what it is, and why audit documentation is so important is because ultimately आप जो भी basis of conclusion आपके audit के ला रहे हैं ट्रू एंड फेयर व्यू आप दे रहे हैं, the documentation is the evidence of the work that you have done and also the planning and performance of that work. So audit documentation, if we look, where does it help? First of all, it helps in the planning and performing the audit. I'll share a simple document that can get created with respect to an audit plan. Before you start the audit, this is an audit plan which you can ask your team to prepare, and you as the proprietor or partner, you can sign off on this thing. See, iska dusra advantage kya hai, that when you talk of the time of the team or a team member that gets involved in a particular assignment, a particular audit, तो उसको भी आप monitoring कर रहे हैं कि भाई कितने दिन जा रहे हैं, and you can actually say कि भाई इतने दिन नहीं लग सकते हैं. So when this audit plan is put before you, then you can actually use it as a tool to ensure that the audit efficiency, it comes into the firm. So here you have the whole team, names उनके लिखते हैं, then scope of work, vouching, जैसा मैंने बोला opening balance verification, कौन से डेट को होगा, कौन करेगा, और उसमें अगर आपके कोई रिमार्क्स है तो वो आएगा. सिमिलरली वाउचिंग जो है, कैश बुक, बैंक बुक, सेल्स, परचेज, जर्नल, DNCN, तो वो कौन सी डेट में कौन सा टीम मेंबर करेगा, और मे बी यू कैन से सैम्पलिंग में कि भाई कितना परसेंटेज करना है, कैसे करना है, दैट यू कैन पुट इन द रिमार्क्स. स्टैट्यूटरी पेमेंट्स कब करेंगे, कौन करेगा, लेजर स्क्रूटिनी, फाइनलाइजेशन एक्टिविटी, एंड फाइनली इट इज साइंड ऑफ by you as a proprietor or as a partner. So this is a very preliminary, a very basic document about a plan, but I believe that just like any other documents, to kickstart the whole documentation process, this becomes very important and very relevant. When you have a plan, you can also have a document like a audit progress report. तो आपने जब ऑडिट स्टार्ट किया है तब आपने ऑडिट प्लान बनाया है, और देन जैसे जो टीम ऑडिट पे जाती है, देन ऑन अ डेली बेसिस दे वुड फिल अप द ऑडिट प्रोग्रेस रिपोर्ट के कौन से दिन में कौन से टीम मेंबर ने क्या काम किया है और वो कितना. समझिए कैश वाउचिंग है, देन आई वुड से डेट 14, 15, 16, 3 दिन मैंने ये किया है, वर्क डन, आई हैव डन कैश वाउचिंग कंप्लीटेड 3 days. अभी ये जब ऑडिट प्रोग्रेस रिपोर्ट आपके पास आती है और आप ऑडिट प्लान देखते हैं, तो यू कैन इमीडिएटली फाइंड आउट कि भाई कैश बुक का प्लानिंग 2 दिन का था, वाउचिंग का तुमने 3 दिन लगाए, तो ऐसा क्यों हुआ. So all these deviations, they would get highlighted, and in the process what happens is, like I said, audit efficiency is something. then आपको पता चलेगा कि वो क्लाइंट के वहां पे कंप्यूटर अवेलेबल नहीं था, या वो अकाउंटेंट 2 दिन नहीं आया था, या अपने टीम मेंबर में कोई बीमार पड़ गया था, या कोई पर्सनल वर्क से हाफ डे लिया था, नहीं आया था. सो once all these things you start monitoring, see आपको तो इसमें कितना जाएगा कि you would have is just, आपको when you compare an audit plan with an audit progress report, it might take you just 5 minutes, because that audit you are aware and you have been monitoring that since 4, 5, 6 years. आप 5 मिनट में देखेंगे, आपको पता चल जाएगा यहाँ पे deviations है, and you can ask your team that you have to be more efficient in doing this. And overall, like I said, the team would also be available. टीम के पास फ्री टाइम भी रहेगा, कुछ एडिशनल काम उसको देना है तो, और आपका मॉनिटरिंग भी प्रॉपर रहेगा, कंट्रोल भी प्रॉपर रहेगा. See, when we go to a client, we say a lot of things about internal controls, maker checker, and कि भाई आपका from purchase to payment cycle जो है, उसमें कहाँ पे इन्वेंट्री आ रहा है, तो फिजिकली आया है, नहीं आया है, we talk so many things. But so this audit plan, audit progress report, all this monitoring is something like an internal control within our office. So it is not, जैसा हम लोग क्लाइंट के प्लेस भी बोलते हैं, इट इज नॉट कि भाई वहां पे फ्रॉड्स है इसीलिए हम लोग ये सब कर रहे हैं. नो, इट इज जस्ट टू एज अ पार्ट ऑफ अ प्रोसेस एंड टू ब्रिंग इन एफिशिएंसी. सो द एडवांटेजेस ऑफ ऑडिट डॉक्यूमेंटेशन: प्लानिंग, परफॉर्मिंग, डायरेक्टिंग, सुपरवाइजिंग, रिव्यूइंग, टेकिंग अकाउंटेबिलिटी फॉर द टीम कि उसने क्या किया है, रिटेनिंग अ रिकॉर्ड ऑफ मैटर्स ऑफ कंटिन्यूइंग सिग्निफिकेंस. आप जब प्रॉपर डॉक्यूमेंटेशन करते हैं तो बहुत बार क्या होता है, दैट दी क्लाइंट सेज कि ठीक है विशाल भाई, ये वाला जो है आपका प्रोसेस बराबर है, वी विल चेंज दिस प्रोसेस, बट अभी हम लोग पीछे का कोई चेंज नहीं करेंगे, हम लोग बाद में करेंगे. टैक्स ऑडिट्स वगैरह सब सितंबर में क्लोज होते हैं, तो मेनी टाइम्स दे गिव सच अश्योरेंसेस कि ठीक है हम लोग सर अक्टूबर से अभी ये एंट्रीज का पैटर्न ऐसा चेंज करेंगे, या ये कंट्रोल करेंगे, ये डॉक्यूमेंटेशन हम लोग अभी से रखेंगे. सो March 20 is already over, you are into let us say September 20. तो ये अगर आप डॉक्यूमेंटेशन प्रॉपर रखते हैं इन अ परमानेंट फाइल लेटर से, तो नेक्स्ट ईयर जो भी ऑडिट टीम जा रही है उसको पता चलेगा कि भाई अभी मेरे को नेक्स्ट ईयर से, ये अक्टूबर से ये चेंज होगा, दिस प्रोसेस, प्रैक्टिस, वाउचर, व्हाटएवर इट माइट बी. सो व्हेन यू हैव अ प्रॉपर डॉक्यूमेंटेशन, इट हेल्प्स देयर आल्सो. Another thing what I would like to highlight the importance of audit documentation is that क्लाइंट्स बहुत बार कंप्लेन करते हैं कि भाई आपके साइड से टीम हर साल नहीं आती है, हमारा काफी टाइम जाता है, उनको सब समझाना पड़ता है, और रिपीटेड क्वेरीज, सिमिलर क्वेरीज आती है एवरी ईयर विच वी हैव अग्रीड कि भाई ये अभी क्वेरी नहीं आएगी. सो ऑल दीज थिंग्स आर देयर. So here also what happens is that if you have a proper documentation, I would say go a step ahead. कि अगर आपके पास एक परमानेंट फाइल का भी आप प्रॉपर रिकॉर्डिंग और परमानेंट फाइल का फाइलिंग करते हैं, देन व्हाट हैपेंस कि कोई भी आपका जो टीम मेंबर है ऑडिट पे जा रहा है, लेटर से वो उसका फर्स्ट टाइम वो क्लाइंट के ऑडिट पे जा रहा है, तो आप उसको बोलिए कि भाई तू परमानेंट फाइल है, यू स्पेंड 1 आवर, 1.5, 2 आवर्स, वॉट एवर, पूरा पढ़ ले, उसका बैलेंस शीट देख ले. परमानेंट फाइल में ओरिजिनल साइन कॉपी ऑफ बैलेंस शीट रहती है, मेमोरेंडम आर्टिकल्स, पार्टनरशिप डीड्स, वॉट एवर माइट बी ऑल द इंपॉर्टेंट थिंग्स दैट वी हैव स्टडीड आल्सो विद रिस्पेक्ट टू परमानेंट फाइल ऑडिट के पेपर में. तो वो सब जो भी है वो एक बार पढ़ लेगा. उसमें ये भी होगा अबाउट द रिकॉर्ड ऑफ मैटर्स ऑफ कंटिन्यूइंग सिग्निफिकेंस. तो ही वुड नो कि भाई अभी क्या करना है, क्या देखना है. एंड लेट मी अश्योर यू, आई गारंटी that if you have a proper permanent file with all these records and a client history in the audits, that अगर जब भी कोई नया टीम मेंबर जाता है, आपका खुद का टाइम काफी सेव हो जाएगा उसको समझाने में या इन्वॉल्व होने में, या क्लाइंट प्लेस पे जाके उसको कि भाई ऐसा 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 तू कर, वो सब समझाने में आपका काफी टाइम सेव हो जाएगा. So audit documentation, again, timely preparation of audit documentation for everything. आपका audit program है, analysis है, जो भी issues है, significant matters है, confirmation letter है, representation letters है, all those things you have to prepare on a timely basis. Once that is also done, audit complete हो जाने के बाद जो final audit file होता है उसको जो close करना होता है, I have seen there also in many cases कि भाई क्या होता है, September end होती है. By the time we close all the tax audits or return filing, and many times there are extensions that happen, and we are into the festival season. Navratri aati hai, Diwali aati hai, and all those things, and we start team members जो होते हैं वो शायद holidays पे चले जाते हैं, and we are into that different festive mood after such a इतने मतलब रात को जाग के हम लोग काम करते हैं for almost 10, 15, 20 days, 1 month, and then we want to relax. In that process, what happens is all the files are stacked as it is, and we don't spend time in closing a particular audit file. So my request to all, जैसे first ट्रायल बैलेंस हमारे पास 3 कॉपी या 4 कॉपी होती है, अलग अलग डेट्स की ट्रायल बैलेंसेस होती है, राइट. अभी वो ट्रायल बैलेंस वो भी जो होती है वो भी मैनी टाइम्स क्या होती है, वो फाइनल जो है फाइनेंशियल स्टेटमेंट्स वाली, वो फाइनल वाली नहीं होती है, बिकॉज प्रोविजन फॉर टैक्स की एंट्री लास्ट में जाती है. पार्टनर्स, अगर पार्टनरशिप फर्म है तो इंटरेस्ट टू पार्टनर्स कैपिटल वो एंट्री लास्ट में जाती है. रेम्यूनरेशन, बिकॉज दैट इज द वेरिएबल ऑफ द प्रॉफिट्स, रेम्यूनरेशन की एंट्री लास्ट में जाती है. तो ये सब एंट्रीज नहीं करते हम लोग, डायरेक्ट एक्सेल में करके बैलेंस शीट साइन ऑफ करके रिटर्न फाइल कर देते हैं. बट वो अकाउंटिंग सॉफ्टवेयर टैली है, ERP है, SAP है, जो भी है, उसमें वो सब एंट्रीज शायद रह जाती है. सो प्रॉब्लम क्या है, वो रह जाती है, ठीक है, भूल जाते हैं. नेक्स्ट ईयर व्हेन द ऑडिट स्टार्ट्स, और फर्स्ट हम लोग जब ओपनिंग बैलेंस वेरिफिकेशन करते हैं, तो जो भी टीम मेंबर जाते हैं वो देखता है कि ये ओपनिंग बैलेंस मेरे मैच नहीं हो रहे विद द सिस्टम, राइट. एंड देन द होल प्रोसेस स्टार्ट्स. वो आधा दिन, एक दिन लगाएगा, हर एक बैलेंस वेरीफाई करेगा कहाँ पे डिफरेंस है, एंड अ लॉट ऑफ टाइम गेट्स स्पेंट ओवर देयर. So my request to all friends, एक प्रोसेस आप ऐसा सेट करिए which we have in our office, and that is why I am saying, friends, whatever I would be saying today is something which I feel that I can practice, or I am practicing. That is what I will share with you, and that is why I would say with a lot of confidence that this is something which is possible to implement in your office. कि आपके जब सितंबर साइन ऑफ बैलेंस शीट रिटर्न सब फाइल हो जाते हैं, प्लीज इमीडिएटली आप क्लाइंट के प्लेस पे जो भी क्लोजिंग एंट्रीज है स्टॉक रिलेटेड, या ये लाइक आई सेड रेम्यूनरेशन, प्रोविजन फॉर टैक्स, जो भी है, सब एंट्रीज डलवा के तभी के तभी ट्रायल बैलेंस का प्रिंट लेके उसमें साइन करवाइए क्लाइंट का, दैट दिस इज द फाइनल ट्रायल बैलेंस व्हिच यू हैव सर्टिफाइड एज अ फाइनेंशियल स्टेटमेंट. आपके जो टीम मेंबर है इन चार्ज ऑफ दैट ऑडिट, उसका भी साइन लीजिए दैट ही और शी हैज वेरीफाइड कि ये जो क्लोजिंग बैलेंसेस है वो ऑडिटेड फाइनेंशियल स्टेटमेंट से मैच होते हैं. तो दोनों की साइन होके यू एंश्योर दैट दैट ट्रायल बैलेंस, साइंड कॉपी ऑफ द ट्रायल बैलेंस, यू कैन इवन स्कैन एंड कीप इट, और यू कीप इट प्रॉपर्ली इन द फाइल. So the chances of next year's opening balance के time के mismatches would get reduced substantially. आप देखिएगा, again I'm taking a guarantee, 1 साल 2 साल में if you put this practice into your office, your a lot of time would get saved in the subsequent year's audit. सो दिस इज ऑल अबाउट द ऑडिट फाइल के भाई आप जब कर रहे हैं वो प्रॉपर सब चेकलिस्ट और वगैरह करके आप उसको फाइनली क्लोज करिए। परमानेंट फाइल में भी जो जाना है और ओरिजिनल बैलेंस शीट्स वगैरह है या कोई लीज अग्रीमेंट है, कमीशन अग्रीमेंट है, कोई लॉन्ग टर्म परचेज ऑर्डर है, कोई ऐसा कॉन्ट्रैक्ट है, तो वो सब जो भी है परमानेंट फाइल में उसको परमानेंट फाइल में फाइल कर दीजिए। रिटेंशन ऑफ ऑडिट डॉक्यूमेंटेशन अंडर इनकम टैक्स एक्ट, अंडर जीएसटी एक्ट, सभी जगह पे लिखा है कि क्लाइंट जो है उसको कितने साल तक रिटेन करना है अपना डॉक्यूमेंट। As an auditor, we are also bound by the Standard on Quality Control 1 SQC 1, which says that from the date of signing my audit report, not from the year end, but from the date that I'm signing the audit report, uske 7 saal, minimum 7 years tak, I have to retain the audit documentation, the audit file. और अगर मैं consolidated financial statements बनाता हूँ and that is signed after my standalone is signed, तो वो CFS sign करने के 7 साल तक I need to retain all the documents with respect to those audits. And ownership of audit documentation, it is of the auditor, वो आपका ही है ownership right. Coming to the next set of standards, identifying and assessing the risk of material misstatement through understanding the entity and its environment. This is also, I would say, standards on audit all are very, very relevant and important. What this standard says कि आप जो ऑडिट रिपोर्ट में बोल रहे हैं कि भाई देयर आर नो मटेरियल मिसस्टेटमेंट्स इन द फाइनेंशियल स्टेटमेंट, आप ट्रू एंड फेयर आप सर्टिफाई कर रहे हो, बट व्हाट इज द रिस्क ऑफ मटेरियल मिसस्टेटमेंट? आपने क्या वो इवैल्यूएट किया है कि भाई क्या रिस्क है आपका मटेरियल मिसस्टेटमेंट का? सो SA 315 सेज दैट बाय अंडरस्टैंडिंग द एंटिटी और उसके एनवायरनमेंट में वेयर एवर इट इज फंक्शनिंग, you can identify and assess what are the risk of material. Now let us say, I'll just give an example with respect to COVID-19. Let us say your client is a person who owns a petrol pump. Now we all know lockdown start हो गया था उसके पास जो भी पेट्रोल पंप में जो भी सब फ्यूल, पेट्रोल, डीजल सब जो टैंक्स में था, now that would have got sold over a period of time. वो otherwise वो 7 दिन में, 10 दिन में या 15 दिन में खाली हो जाता था and he would have to refill. And now it might have, because of the lockdown, वो शायद 2 महीने तक भी नहीं बिक होगा. So now you need to understand कि वो 2 महीने में वो prices भी fuel के down हुए थे. There were changes in the duty structure also. So now whatever was his purchase price, whatever was his sale price, depending on the environment and the entity वो कौन से business में है, you have to do all these assertions. तो उस पे बेसिस पे उसको क्या रिस्क है, वेदर उसके अभी क्रेडिट टर्म्स, बिकॉज द ऑयल मार्केटिंग कंपनीज IOCL, BPCL, HPCL, ऑल दोस, दे वुड बी सप्लाइंग एट अ पर्टिकुलर क्रेडिट टर्म्स कि भाई आप ठीक है विद इन 24 आवर्स या मैं सप्लाई करूँ 48 आवर्स और मे बी एडवांस पेमेंट ऑल्सो, बट लॉकडाउन सिचुएशन में वेदर दे हैव गिवन एन एडिशनल क्रेडिट लाइन या credit period to your client. So all these things become very important when you are doing a wrong risk of material misstatement. कोई पेरिशेबल कमोडिटीज में है, कोई एसेंशियल सर्विसेज में है जिसका कोई डिसरप्शन नहीं हुआ है बट ओवरऑल डिमांड हैज कम डाउन, तो उस पे क्या इम्पैक्ट है? लेट अस से इलेक्ट्रिसिटी कंपनीज, नाउ इलेक्ट्रिसिटी कंपनीज वी माइट फील दैट ऑल फैक्ट्रीज एंड ऑल वर क्लोज, यस, तो if my experience is that on HT हाई टेंशन पे उन लोग का काफी वॉल्यूम मतलब डिमांड कम हुआ था, बट ऑन द रेसिडेंशियल साइड द डिमांड इंक्रीज बिकॉज हम लोग सब घर पे बैठे थे, एसीज और सब गर्मी थी, एयर कंडीशंस और सब वो 2-3 सभी रूम में चालू थे पूरे दिन पूरी रात. So if you look at it, then there was a switch. But when you, as an auditor, then you should understand the entity and its environment और उसपे फिर उसके related क्या-क्या risk हो सकते हैं. When you talk of the risk of material misstatement as the assertion level, these are the different categories, these are the different heads under which you need to ensure and assess that there are no material misstatements remaining. So one, the first set relates to the classes of transaction and events for the period under audit. मतलब transaction based आपका risk of material misstatement क्या है और how you can overcome that. Second is the middle column is with respect to year end. Year end जो closing balances है, वो balance is related how you assess the risk of material misstatement. And third is with respect to the presentation and disclosure. कि financial statements में आप जो भी presentation disclosure दे रहे हैं उसके related what are the risk of material misstatement at the assertion level. I will not go into very much detail on this. This is there in the standard and it is something which is very easy to read and digest. So coming to the next set about audit evidence, SF 500. So we said that we need to keep documentation, we need to keep evidence. So what are the different types of procedures that we do to obtain the audit evidence? So first is inspection, जैसे physical verification of inventory करते हैं, physical verification of fixed assets करते हैं, कोई मैन्युफैक्चरिंग एंटिटी है या ऐसा कुछ है जिसमें भी वो इंस्पेक्ट द होल मैन्युफैक्चरिंग प्रोसेस के स्क्रैप जनरेशन है, बाई प्रोडक्ट है, वो क्या है, एंड देन वी obtain audit evidence based on inspection procedure. On the observation side, हम लोग जो vouching वगैरह करते हैं, that is an audit evidence. External confirmation I'll come to later. Recalculation is also an audit evidence. I'll just give a simple example कि client ने आपको depreciation का working करके दिया है Excel file में. अभी उसी को जो master data है, आप अपने हिसाब से पूरा का पूरा recalculate करिए and you match the results of what he has given and what you have calculated, and that is a recalculation by which you are able to obtain proper audit evidence. So these are all the audit procedures. Analytical procedures are there. Inquiry means where you interact with the client या उसके जो top management है या like I said shop floor वाला है, you can even interact with a worker in the factory and try to understand the process, and you these are all audit process. आप उसको document करिए और वो बन जाता है आपके लिए audit evidence. See, many times what happens is हम लोग processes सब करते हैं, but then we fail to document it, and like I said earlier, that you have to follow this principle that whatever is not documented is not done. So you please ensure that आप जो भी कर रहे हैं उसका आप documentation साथ साथ में ही create कर ले. If you see many of the large clients wherever you are associated, वो लोग क्या करते हैं कि आपकी मीटिंग वगैरह होती है, immediately they send a mail that विशाल भाई से मीटिंग हुई, these are the 1 2 3 4 5 things that we discussed and decided, and fine, वो मेल आपको डाल देते हैं. So if there is any change, you confirm. So that also becomes an audit evidence or an audit documentation. So if you have had a meeting, you have had an inquiry with a client, आप भी some mail कर दीजिए उनको, this is what is our understanding. So that is our audit documentation and audit evidence also. With respect to inventory, I would say that because I will take this specific because there is a lot of material that has been circulated, and the advisory even from our institute, the AASB, on inventory in this COVID-19 lockdown situation. So here I would just like to say that wherever you have a recurring client जिसका काफी सालों से audit कर रहे हैं, and you are aware कि उनके जो physical verification processes है वो लोग regularly करते हैं, either on a quarterly basis या half yearly basis, साल में एक बार करते हैं, but वो जो भी होता है proper होता है, otherwise also internal controls are in place, or you might have a perpetual inventory verification system. Then in all those cases you can take comfort from the past practice, and then you can find out with 31st March को what are the possibilities of the deviation in the physical stock versus the book stock, and whether any material misstatements or errors would be there which might need a rectification. If you are unable to verify physically verify the inventory as on the year-end date, तो आपने समझिए जनवरी फरवरी में किया है या इंटरनल ऑडिटर ने किया, यू कैन इवन रिलाई ऑन द इंटरनल ऑडिटर, या आपने करंट डेट में किया है, देन यू हैव द रोल बैक एंड द रोल फॉरवर्ड प्रोसीडियर्स. मतलब आपने अभी किया है तो यू रोल बैक to 31st March and find out what are the discrepancies that would be there at that point in time. या तो आपने Jan Feb में या कुछ किया है, then you roll forward to 31st March and find out what are the discrepancies, and you can make necessary adjustments. So that is also permissible. Still, if you are not able to physically visit a particular client, समझिए traveling अभी भी नहीं है, या दिल्ली या मुंबई में कोई client है या गुड़गांव वहाँ पे है जहाँ पे आप नहीं जा सकते हैं, you can adopt alternative procedures. समझिए वीडियो रिकॉर्डिंग हो रहा है, या जैसे हम लोग अभी कर रहे हैं जूम पे या समथिंग पे लाइव स्ट्रीमिंग चल रहा है, कि वेयर द क्लाइंट इज डूइंग द फिजिकल वेरिफिकेशन और आप ऑब्जर्व कर रहे हैं थ्रू द डिजिटल टेक्नोलॉजी, और देन व्हाटएवर इज द वीडियो आप रिकॉर्ड करके दैट यू कैन कीप एज एन ऑडिट एविडेंस. सो ऑल दीज आर द पॉसिबल सॉल्यूशंस फॉर द इन्वेंटरी काउंट एज ऑन 31st of March. बट अगर ये कुछ भी पॉसिबल नहीं है एंड यू फील दैट देयर इज स्टिल अ रिस्क, देन यू हैव नो अदर ऑप्शन बट टू मॉडिफाई और क्वालिफाई योर ऑडिट रिपोर्ट. Friends, going to external confirmations, I believe that this is very important. Even if you have a client who is I would say a proprietorship concern or a small partnership MSME hai. Then also I believe that maybe you should start this practice that in such clients 10-15-20 confirmation on the receivables and the payable side से आप collectively करके आप मंगवाइए. You start this practice as an auditor. This is again something important, because what happens, see, how do you select? समझिए 50 sundry debtors है, trade receivables है, 50 party है, 150 parties है. Now how do you shortlist? Like I said that you have to be very very selective in sending, and you have different methods. आप एक तो ये कर सकते हैं कि भाई total sales का जो majority 10 टॉप 10 या टॉप 15 पार्टीज है या टॉप 20 पार्टीज है, आप उसको कंफर्मेशन रिक्वेस्ट भेजिए। फ्रेंड्स, अगेन आई वुड सजेस्ट दैट जो कंफर्मेशन रिक्वेस्ट जाती है और जो रिस्पॉन्स आते हैं, दैट इज वेरी लेस। सो you should have a larger sample to whom you are sending the confirmation request. So like I said, first is based on the volume, second is based on the balance, so high balance transactions that you can send, or even the non moving balance. तो नॉन मूविंग में भी क्या है, दो टाइप के बैलेंसेस हो सकते हैं। वन इज ओपनिंग इज इक्वल टू क्लोजिंग, देयर आर नो ट्रांजैक्शंस ड्यूरिंग द ईयर, तो आप उनको कंफर्मेशन भेजिए, आइदर डेटर है या क्रेडिटर है। Second non-moving would be opening and closing is the same, but during the year आपके transactions है. So that is something which is pretty alarming, and you must send a confirmation request to such parties. Another possible way is that debtors के जो credit balances है, creditors के जो debit balances है, आप उनको भेजिए। या another I would say one more way, see you can have multiple, ऐसा नहीं है कि आप कोई भी client में एक ही method follow करें, you can have all these 4-5 methods और shortlisting techniques, एंड सभी को मर्ज करके आप सैंपल दीजिए कि ये आपको 40 या 50 क्लाइंट पार्टीज को आपको कंफर्मेशन रिक्वेस्ट भेजना है क्लाइंट को। अनदर इंपॉर्टेंट टेक्निक इज दैट यू कैन ऑब्जर्व कि जहां पे बिल टू बिल नॉकिंग ऑफ नहीं होता है विथ रिस्पेक्ट टू रिसीट और विथ रिस्पेक्ट टू पेमेंट, राइट। सो लमसम अमाउंट होता है, 50,000 हुआ, 1 लाख मैंने दे दिया है, तो ये सब केसेस में इट इज अगेन वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट टू take a confirmation, because there might be possible chances of some fraudulent activities happening in these accounts, and it's always better to be safe than sorry, and therefore you should ask for confirmations in such case. Now अब जब confirmation client के लिए draft कर रहे हैं, तो that wordings become very important कि आप confirming party से आप confirmation कैसे मांग रहे हो। One is that where you are saying that you give a confirmation whether the balance is matching or not matching. So in either case, the confirming party has to confirm the balance. So this is what we say as the positive confirmation request. और in cases where आप अगर मेल ऐसा कर रहे हो कि भाई आपका बैलेंस मैच नहीं हो रहा है, तो ही आप हमको confirmation दीजिए या respond करिए. So that is what is a negative confirmation request, and the standard itself says that it is less persuasive audit evidence, and therefore it should be avoided. So you send a positive confirmation request, and then you also have to be very sure कि जब responses आ रहे हैं, हाँ वो confirmation request में you have to ensure that you write to the party, confirming party, that they have to confirm directly to you as an auditor and not to the client. All confirmations hard copy हो या mail से हो, they should all come to you directly to your office. So you also need to examine कि ये जो confirmations आ रहे हैं वो कौन से मोड से आ रहे हैं, वो client के थ्रू आ रहे हैं, then you might need to question bit कि भाई ये सही हो सकता है, नहीं हो सकता है, and then you need to find out that if there are no responses or very few responses, then as an auditor how would you tackle them. Analytical procedures हम लोग typically जो बोलते हैं with respect to ratio analysis, for each given assertion आप जो देते हैं with respect to, let us say आप sales दे रहे हैं, purchase दे रहे हैं, profit दे रहे हैं, all those things, analytical ratio is very important, because you can do a lot of, I have found a lot of queries coming up just by doing an analytical review. What happens is that, again, I would say some of the techniques that when you can do a year on year comparison, तो उसमें क्या होता है that any deviations on a year on year, it gives you कि भाई anywhere 2%, 5% से ज़्यादा variation है, तो that should be under scrutiny. So you can, what I have observed is, बहुत बार क्या होता है कि previous year figure 0 होता है, इस साल कोई expense या balance होता है, तो you can ask questions कि भाई ये कहाँ से आया, तो you come across, just by doing that analytical review, you come across such new transactions that have happened or taken place. या बहुत बार क्या होता है कि previous year वो जो expense है या वो जो amount है वो कोई और head में चला गया होता है, इस साल नया head create किया है जिसको balance reflect हो रहा है और previous year 0 है. Then you have a choice that you can either regroup that previous year या current year को आप उसमें ले जाइए, depending on how you want that accounting pattern to continue. Similar things would happen, that आपका previous year में balance है, इस साल में नहीं है. So again, that is an analytical review which will give you a lot of insight into certain transactions and certain processes. So I would suggest that इसका भी documentation होना चाहिए. I'll just share one file on a checklist which we prepare. And वो जो checklist है, ये पूरा एक checklist है कि just expand it a bit. या सो दिस इज अ चेकलिस्ट फॉर अ कंपनी दैट आपको ट्रायल बैलेंस आया है कि नहीं आया, शेयर कैपिटल है तो शेयर कैपिटल में आपकी क्या क्या रिक्वायरमेंट्स है, तो यू गिव दिस टू द क्लाइंट बिफोर यू स्टार्ट द ऑडिट एंड लेट हिम फिल दिस अप। रिजर्व्स है, बोरोइंग्स है, तो बोरोइंग्स रिलेटेड आपको क्या क्या देखना है। यू कैन इवन हैव योर टीम, आपके टीम जब ये फिलअप करे आप इसको रिव्यू करिए तो आपको पता चल जाएगा कि कितने ट्रांजेक्शन हुए, क्या ऑडिट हुआ, क्या पेंडिंग है। अनसिक्योर्ड लोन रिलेटेड सब रिक्वायरमेंट्स है, डिफर्ड टैक्स, प्रॉपर्टी प्लांट इक्विपमेंट, CWIP, इन्वेस्टमेंट प्रॉपर्टी, इन्वेस्टमेंट्स, ये सब चेकलिस्ट है, सब रिक्वायरमेंट्स है कि भाई आपको क्या क्या। दिस रन्स इनटू मोर देन ऑलमोस्ट आई वुड से व्हाट 200 line items, but this is a very comprehensive list for a company audit, जिसमें आपको at a glance you would have a almost I would say 100% comfort that if this checklist is followed by your team, there would be hardly anything that would have been left out. Now if I come to the analytical review portion in this file itself, ये P&L में आप देखेंगे कि ये रेशियो का फॉर्मूला सेट किया है, तो जो भी इंक्रीज डिक्रीज है उसका रीजनिंग हैज टू बी मेंशन। नाउ दिस इज व्हाट इज द ऑडिट डॉक्यूमेंटेशन। आपने एनालिटिकल रिव्यू किया, समझिए आपने कैलकुलेटर से कर लिया या कुछ भी करके आपने डाल दिया, या तो आपने रेशियोज वर्कआउट कर दिए है बट देन यू हैव नॉट गिवन अ जस्टिफिकेशन कहाँ पे वेरिएशन आ रहा है, then that is also not proper, that is not a complete audit documentation. Just finding out the ratio is not the end of the audit documentation. So you have to mention कि जहाँ पे deviation हो रहा है उसका क्या क्या reasons है। And friends, let me assure you, this is with respect to balance sheets, the ratios and all. And my experience says that आप जब ये analytical review properly करते हैं तो आपको बहुत कुछ मिलता है with respect to that audit which would need to be rectified by the client. Auditing accounting estimates, I will just share one thing that balance sheet आप जब बना रहे हैं तो there are a lot of estimates with respect to employee benefits, with respect to doubtful advances, with respect to inventory, non-moving, slow moving, warranty related कोई client में अगर होता है तो ये सब estimates के लिए there are procedures which you have to follow. I will give a very simple example, जब जहाँ पे भी actuarial valuation करवाते हैं, let us say employee benefit related, तो उसमें आप एक्चुअली का रिपोर्ट आता है तो हम लोग उसके बेसिस पे डाल देते हैं, बट हैव यू एक्चुअली यू आर सपोज्ड टू गो थ्रू व्हाटएवर आर द अजम्पशंस दैट द एक्चुअरी हैज टेकन। आई वुड इवन गो अ स्टेप अहेड कि उसने जो आपके क्लाइंट ने अगर सैलरी रिलेटेड फाइल भेजा है जिसके बेसिस पे एक्चुअली ने वर्किंग की है, तो देयर शुड बी अ सिस्टम बाय विच वो जो टोटल सैलरी जो उसने भेजी है, एनुअल हो या फॉर अ पर्टिकुलर मंथ हो, अगर वो मंथली सैलरी है तो आप आपके जो लेजर है उसमें सैलरी के लेजर पे टोटल करके देखिए कि वो मोर और लेस मोटा मोटी मैच हो रहा है कि नहीं हो रहा है। I have seen cases where the salary details that is sent to the actuary, that is just 60 or 70% of my monthly payroll खर्चा जो होता है। तो then when we investigate तब पता चलता है या तो एरर है या कुछ कोई नया बंदा ज्वाइन हुआ है जिसका लिखना रह गया, या डायरेक्टर्स आर नॉट इंक्लूडेड इन द पार्ट ऑफ दैट AS15 वर्किंग, एंड देयर कैन बी एन नंबर ऑफ थिंग्स। प्लस आप जो एस्केलेशन रेट है, डिस्काउंट रेट है, इंटरेस्ट रेट है, ऑल दीज थिंग्स यू नीड टू कंपेयर लिस्टेड कंपनीज में व्हाट आर द बेंचमार्क्स, व्हाट आर द प्रोसेसेस व्हिच यू फॉलोड। फ्रेंड्स, लेट मी अश्योर यू, ये सब जो एस्टिमेट्स है इसमें 0.5%, 1% प्लस या माइनस करने से P&L में काफी बड़ा बड़ा इम्पैक्ट आता है। सो आई वुड रिक्वेस्ट दैट ये जो प्रोसीजर है अंडर SA 540, प्लीज गो थ्रू इट एंड इंश्योर दैट यू कंप्लाई विथ इट। Subsequent events, again I would say COVID-19 situation, you need to validate कि 31st March के बाद, I already discussed about that petrol pump and client into such services या perishable है। I'll share one more example which a friend of mine had called me and consulted. That was way back in the first week of April. He was into garments. If Surat being a city of textile, maybe वहाँ पे भी हो सकता है कि वो गारमेंट मैन्युफैक्चरिंग करके एक्सपोर्ट था उसके क्लाइंट का टू यूरोप। नाउ यूरोप यूएस में क्या होता है, सब सीजनल बेसिस पे एक्सपोर्ट्स होते हैं कि वो जो गारमेंट बेचते हैं दैट वो 2-3 महीने में सेल ऑफ हो जाता है, उसके बाद क्लाइमेट चेंज होता है, सीजन चेंज होता है, तो गारमेंट का पूरा वो स्टॉक चेंज हो जाता है। सो नाउ ये बिकॉज ऑफ लॉकडाउन वो एक्सपोर्ट हो नहीं सका। ही हैड सेंट डिस्पैच फ्रॉम हिज फैक्ट्री, पोर्ट पे पड़ा रहा माल, शिप पे BL नहीं आया, बिल ऑफ लेडिंग नहीं आया, और वो वहीं पे अटका है एज ऑन 31st of March। सो एज अ सब्सिक्वेंट इवेंट व्हाट आई वुड लुक एट कि भाई अभी वो जो मटेरियल है, वेदर दी कस्टमर इज स्टिल विलिंग टू टेक दैट, यस, कौन सी प्राइस पे वो ले रहा है, वेदर इट्स द सेम कॉन्ट्रैक्टेड प्राइस पे ले रहा है, या फिर वो बोल रहा है कि मैं नहीं ले सकूंगा, मेरा तो अभी ये सीजन खत्म हो गया, नेक्स्ट ईयर देखेंगे। So whether your client is then planning to sell that in the current in India in the domestic market. So see, these are all subsequent events which you have to observe and then take cognizance of कि भाई इसका भी हम लोग inventory export नहीं हुआ BL नहीं है, that means it is part of my inventory. But when I say inventory, तो मेरा valuation process says cost or NRV whichever is lower. So cost तो मिल जाएगा, but NRV so based on whatever are the subsequent event वो inventory को dispose of कैसे करेगा उसके basis पे you have to judge what is the NRV and whether any provisions are required. So these are just a few examples of how SA 560 can be applied. Again, on going concern, see, even on subsequent events, there has been guidance from the AASB advisory कि इसको कैसे apply करना है. Even on going concern, this is right from the standard SA 570. That these are the example or events that individually or collectively may cast significant doubt on the entity's ability to continue as a going concern. इसमें main क्या है, going concern is a fundamental accounting assumption और उसके basis पे if you going concern assumption is impaired, that means you have to prepare the financial statements on a liquidation basis as if कि भाई आज सब बेच देना है. So that is the importance of going concern, and these are the various parameters that have been given, financial, operating and other, by which going concern may get impacted. So you have to evaluate on a client to client basis, and you can ask your clients also to prepare certain projections. And projections, friends, should not be of a 1 month or 2 month. कि भाई lockdown है अभी तो 1-2 महीने में. It has to be a minimum 12-month cycle of your projections to establish whether going concern would be impaired or not, and that becomes equally important. Written representations, friends, this is also I say जैसे आप engagement letter बनाते हैं वैसे ही ये mirror image है उसका, by which the client represents about what all it has done, what all are its responsibilities जो उसने comply की है, और हर एक head के अंदर plant and machinery. I have one sample. I'll quickly run through it because we are running a bit short of time. MRL for a non-corporate client. So this is in case of a partnership firm. तो ये आएगा on the letterhead of the client to you, and all responsibilities of the management. This comes accounting policies जो उसने ली है उसके assurances वो देते हैं, estimates के देते हैं, property plant equipment के सब assurances, capital commitments, investments. So all these are the assertions that the management is making towards you. Let me clarify that this is not an audit evidence. This is a part of your audit process. This is a part of the audit documentation. So ऐसा नहीं है कि भी management representation ले लिया तो अभी हमको मेरे को कोई documentation नहीं करना है, सब कुछ इसमें आ गया. That is not the case. This is just a representation which is a part of your audit documentation and the assertions from the management side. So it is a lengthy, it covers almost all the heads of your balance sheet and P&L, and it is signed by the proprietor or the partner. So आप जब file closing कर रहे हैं, like I said, September के बाद, please ensure that for each year, each client gives you a representation letter. Friends, these are something which are very, very easy documents that I have shown you. It's just that you have to put it as part of your practice, as part of the audit firm's quality. And I assure you that all these things if you put in place, so अगर एक process में आ जाएगा, all this should not take a substantial period of time. Using the work of others, I think I can skip this. This is a work of another auditor जहाँ पे holding और subsidiary का relationship होता है, and subsidiary auditors are different from the holding company auditors. Using the work of internal auditors, this is also where you need to involve yourself in understanding the scope of the internal audit, the competence of the internal auditor, and like I said, physical verification of inventory, so you can rely on the internal auditor. समझिए बहुत small and medium enterprises में क्या होता है, internal auditor का scope 100% vouching करना है. Those are statutory compliances 100% देखने हैं. Now you read the scope. अगर वही scope उनका है, वो quarterly basis या monthly basis पे कर रहे हैं, तो आप जब आपकी टीम को भेज रहे हैं, and you are sure that the audit firm is of a high competence, then you can definitely say कि भाई फिर वो जब 100% vouching कर रहे हैं तो मेरे को करने की जरूरत नहीं है. I will roll down my vouching to just 10%, or maybe on a need-based, scrutiny-based vouching. So that is the importance and how we can use the work of the internal auditor. Coming to audit reporting, SA 700, हमने पूरा audit, if you see the whole process was, हमने पहले अपना responsibility समझी, then we did about the principles, then we did about the audit evidence, and now using the work of other auditors, and finally my audit report. So this is the format of the audit report. Key audit matters is in case of listed entities only. Other information where applicable, it is applicable only where it is a company, might be listed or unlisted, but जो annual report बनाती है with a director's report and management discussion and analysis and all those things, वहाँ पे वो applicable है. Going concern का भी separate paragraph है, which we need to, अगर if going concern is impaired or there are possibility of impairment, then there is a separate paragraph which is required in the audit report. Key audit matters, again, this is for listed companies, so I would skip this presently for want of time. In case anybody wants any specific guidance or discussion, you can call me, you can communicate with me, and I would be more than happy. Friends, when we talk of qualification in the auditor's report, there are three the standards. When you read, it would talk of a modification in the auditor's report. और मॉडिफिकेशन में तीन आते हैं, क्वालिफाइड ओपिनियन आता है, एडवर्स ओपिनियन आता है और डिस्क्लेमर ऑफ ओपिनियन आता है. So when do we give a qualified opinion? कि जब financial statements are materially misstated but they are not pervasive. Not pervasive means that it does not impact the whole financial statements. मतलब ऐसा नहीं है कि पूरा का पूरा financial statement आपके गलत है. अभी मैंने बोलता हूँ सिंपल है कि भाई employee benefits AS15, as per the accounting standard, your client needs to find that कि भाई वो actuarial का working करके provision कर रहा है कि नहीं कर रहा है. समझ में, उसने actuarial नहीं किया, उसने actual किया है 15/26 जो हम लोग typically बोलते हैं gratuity में. Then they have not complied with the requirement of the accounting standard, so it would be a material deviation and therefore you would qualify your opinion. But वो because he has not done that actuarial valuation, इसका मतलब ऐसा नहीं है that it has impact on the whole lot of the full financial statement. So आप तब qualified opinion देंगे, and if the impact is material and pervasive, then you would give an adverse opinion. Similarly, inability to obtain sufficient appropriate audit evidence. If you see the importance of audit evidence, कि भाई आपको अगर proper audit evidence भी नहीं मिलता है, तो you have a right to qualify, to modify your audit report. And if that आपको audit evidence नहीं मिला है, and वो material है, तो आप qualify करेंगे, और वो material है और pervasive है, मतलब it has a significant impact on the whole financial statements, then you would give a disclaimer of opinion. What does these things mean? I will just briefly say that आप जब qualified opinion दे रहे हैं, then what you are writing in your audit report is that you are saying that except for the matters separately said about the audit qualification, the financial statements give a true and fair view. So you are making an exception, qualified opinion में, except for that it is giving a true and fair view. When you are saying an adverse opinion, then you are saying that because of this matter or subject, I would say because of this matter, I am not saying that this is a true and fair view. So I would say that because of the matter ABC, whatever it might be listed in the audit report, the financial statements do not give a true and fair view. That is what is an adverse opinion. और disclaimer of opinion ऐसा है कि भाई true and fair है या नहीं है, I am not able to say, and therefore we do not express any opinion on the financial statement. So these are the three types of audit modifications. Emphasis of matters paragraph and other matters paragraph in the report. I would just give a snapshot. What is emphasis of matter? ऐसा है कि जहाँ पे financial statements में appropriate presentation or disclosure हुआ है, right? But still, as an auditor, you feel that it is something significant, and I would like to draw the attention of the readers of my audit report about that particular matter. अभी मैं simple example दूँ, COVID-19 related कोई notes वगैरह देते हैं financial statements में, which I feel is significant for the user to understand the financial statement. Then in my audit report, I would give reference of that note and say in the emphasis of matter paragraph. Or other matters paragraph में ऐसा आता है कि भाई where it is not disclosed in the financial statements anywhere, but still you want to draw attention, then you need to show it in your other matters paragraph. Uska, if I give an example, is that let us say if the management has taken useful life as an estimated basis, now that is significant because property plant equipment का block काफी बड़ा है उसका, and you want to just draw attention that they have not taken as per schedule 2, but they have taken on the management estimate. So there you would give a disclosure. If I talk of a consolidated financial statement जहाँ पे subsidiary का audit किसी और ने किया है, but consolidated पे मैं sign कर रहा हूँ, then I would give in the other matters paragraph that ये subsidiary का audit मैंने नहीं किया है, वो किसी और auditor ने किया है. So that is the difference between UI and OM. ऐसे 720 I said कि जहाँ पे annual report बनता है, तो उसमें directors report वगैरह में जो भी आता है reference to or pulling up details from the financial statements, तो वो भी सब डिटेल्स आपको वेरीफाई करके आपके ऑडिट रिपोर्ट में यू नीड टू गिव रेफरेंस ऑफ दैट. Other than historical financial information, so there are separate standards. हमने अभी तक जो भी डिस्कस किए, they are with respect to audits, जो हम लोग नॉर्मल कोर्स में करते हैं, historical financial information. Now, for other than historical financial information, just I will just touch upon SAE 3400 about prospective financial information. तो अगर कोई client है आपका who is going for let us say some loan or बैंक्स को आपको कोई प्रोजेक्शंस देने हैं और वो सर्टिफाइड कॉपी मांग रहे हैं, देन यू हैव टू गिव दैट एज पर एसएई 3400 अबाउट प्रोस्पेक्टिव. मतलब आपके कोई प्रोजेक्शंस है या एस्टिमेट्स है वो कुछ सर्टिफाई करने हैं, देन यू विल नॉट गो इनटू द स्टैंडर्ड्स व्हिच वी हैव स्पोकन अबाउट सो फार. यू विल गो इनटू दिस स्टैंडर्ड. एंगेजमेंट लेटर भी इसी से हिसाब से आप बनाएंगे और आपका रिपोर्ट भी इसी के बेसिस पे देंगे. और ये सब जो रिपोर्ट्स है, these are all review reports. What are review reports? Basically कि वो आपका स्टेटमेंट उसमें आता है that you have not done a detailed audit. आपने ऑडिट पूरा नहीं किया, आपने सिर्फ रिव्यू किया है कि भाई कोई मटेरियल मिसस्टेटमेंट नहीं है, and because you have not done an audit, you are not expressing an opinion that it is true and fair. That paragraph is very important. और ये सब आप जो भी other than audits आप जो भी सर्टिफाई कर रहे हैं, my request is kindly refer that standard on audit. आप उसी में से illustration में से format लीजिए report का, and you ensure that you do a proper compliance. You don't take any responsibility of an audit or a true and fair view unless you have actually done an audit, and a review is not an audit. Similarly, SRS 4410 compilation engagements. Many times we receive this question कि trial balance है, अभी तो काफी कम हो गया है because of the clarity. But you know, clients are asking कि आप trial balance certify करके दीजिए, मेरे को इधर देना है उधर देना है, which we are not technically, we cannot certify a trial balance just by उसपे stamp कर दिया या उसपे true and fair लिख दिया या true copy लिख दिया. All those things is not permitted. We have to go into SRS 4410 on compilation engagements, जो बोलता है कि आपने ट्रायल बैलेंस में से आप फाइनेंशियल स्टेटमेंट्स पे आप कंपाइल करिए. इट विल गो एज अ कंपाइलेशन एंगेजमेंट और उसके बेसिस पे उसमें आप रिपोर्ट दीजिए कि आपने कंपाइलेशन किया है, आपने ऑडिट नहीं किया है, आपने रिव्यू नहीं किया है, एंड देयरफॉर यू डू नॉट एक्सप्रेस एन ओपिनियन. सो in such cases kindly refer to SRS 4410. Friends, these are a few publications of the WRC relating to audits on CARO reporting and key audit matters and other reporting and audit reports. I would request all friends, these are available on the WRC website. Kindly आप डाउनलोड करके उसको रिफर करिए. You will get a lot of material, reference material I would say, by which your you would get some insight and you can standardize some of your reporting practices with respect to CARO and the audit reporting. And this would help in standardizing the process and improving the overall reporting across our fraternity in a very, very nice way. Friends, thank you for a very patient hearing. I have a couple of more documents and details that I can share, but I would do that once the second presentation is over, time permitting. I will take on that. So thank you all, and over to the organizers.
Sir, should I start?
अरुण जी, आप म्यूट पे लग रहे हैं. Can't hear you if you are.
Thank you so much, Vishal sir. Anurag sir, I will request you to please take over the charge of the session.
Thank you, Arun ji. Can you see my screen?
Yes, it is visible.
सर मटेरियलिटी ऐसा सब्जेक्ट है जो कि रोज हम यूज करते हैं लेकिन लिखते कभी नहीं है. If any our staff comes and say, sir, we have found such a mistake in this account, our first question is, how much is the amount? He say 20,000. How much is the turnover? 10 crore.
Anurag, maybe you can put it on the slideshow mode, so full screen दिखेगा. Sorry to interrupt, but
Okay. That is fine.
yeah, perfect. Go ahead, carry on, please.
So our first interpretation lies with the materiality only. On the contrary, we do not write anything about materiality in our working paper. Rightly said by Vishal Bhai, if you have not documented, you have not done it. Our accounting is somewhat like on the basis of estimates. Our accounting standard says you must measure an item, measure item at the time of recording and remeasure at the time of balance sheet date. So materiality plays a very crucial role in that. Our financial reporting framework often discuss with the concept of materiality in the context of preparation and presentation of financial statement. Misstatement, including omissions, are considered to be material if they individually or in aggregate could reasonably be expected to influence the economic decision of the user taken on the basis of financial statement. हमारा मेटेरियलिटी का पहला लेवल उसी पे काम करता है कि इकोनॉमिक डिसीजंस में क्या फर्क आएगा यूजर्स के. Judgment of materiality is subjective matter and are made in the light of surrounding circumstances and are affected by the size and nature of misstatement or combination of both. Judgment about matter that are material to user of financial statement are based on a consideration of common financial needs of the user as a group. Now this group has been defined in our standards on auditing because any person who is viewing this statement may not be a proper person who can comment on it. Say our financial statement can go to a person who is Anguta Chap and he will ask for small things like 100 rupees error, 50,000, 50 rupees error. So what they have defined is Para 10 of framework for preparation and presentation of financial statement says indicate that for a profit-oriented entity that as a provider of risk capital to the enterprise, investor need more comprehensive information than other user. The provision of financial statement that meet their need will also meet most of the need of other user of that financial statement can satisfy. That means who are investor in that balance sheet are more important persons than other user. If they are satisfied with the maturity level, then anyone can be satisfied. Our essay is also speaks upon auditor's perspective on users. How a minimum level of knowledge of user is auditor is deeming. 4 points are there. Auditor sees that he has reasonable knowledge of business and economic activities and accounting and a willingness to study the information in financial statement with reasonable diligence. Understand that financial statements are prepared, presented and audited to the levels of materiality. Recognize the uncertainties inherent in the measurement of amount based on use of estimate, judgment and consideration of future event. Make reasonable economic decision on the basis of information in the financial statement. That means the user who can point on our statement should be well learned, but not well learned. Minimum these qualities should be possessed by them. How a materiality is ascertained? First, nature, timing and extent of risk assessment procedure. जिस तरह की हम ऑडिट करते हैं उसमें किस तरह का एनवायरनमेंट है उसके ऊपर हम अपनी मेटेरियलिटी डिसाइड करते हैं. कई बार ऐसा होता है कि कोई वाउचर्स का सिस्टम नहीं है, कभी भी एंट्री हो रही है तो हमारा रिस्क बढ़ जाता है, तो हम अपना मेटेरियलिटी लेवल बढ़ा लेते हैं, वाउचिंग लेवल बढ़ा लेते हैं. रिस्क ऑफ मटेरियल मिस स्टेटमेंट जो ऐसे 315 जो सर ने डिस्कस किया, हमारे बेसिकली 3 तरह के रिस्क होते हैं किसी भी ऑडिट में: इनहेरेंट रिस्क, कंट्रोल रिस्क एंड डिटेक्शन रिस्क. Inherent and control risk are implemented by the client and detection risk is implemented by us. The risk of material misstatement is judged by inherent and control risk. What the controls has been placed by the party. We have to study that. After we can say what will be the level of materiality, nature, timing, and extent of further audit procedure. Sometimes some materiality, some misstatement is found. Then we have to again redesign what should be extra nature, extra work, extra time, or further analytical procedures or other procedures should be taken care of. Materiality level are decided on the basis of some benchmarks. These benchmarks can be assets, liabilities, equity level, revenue, expenses. This is a matter purely of auditor's judgment. What should be the best judgment for the materiality for our profit-oriented units? Generally, these benchmark is revenue, sales. Like in banks, we more focus on level of loans and advances and deposits. So our benchmark may be based on that level of loans and advances or deposits. Sometimes when unit is more focused on profits, then our materiality set on the level of profits. And the nature of entity, industry, environment in which it operates. Like I've already discussed, examples will be profit before tax, total revenue, gross profits, total expenses, total equity, net asset value, profit from continuing operation. Sometimes we take benchmark level on continuing profit from continuing operation. And if we see that the percentage or ratio of continuing operations are not in line, then we have to recast that profit from continuing operation to normal continuing operation by removing extraordinary items. The materiality levels are calculated for financial reporting period. There may be a situation that the financial which we are auditing may be of 6 months because the company was incorporated in last 6 months only. Or it may be position that the financial are more than 12 months because the first financials are made for more than 12 months. Professional judgment is applied on percentage. Higher rate when calculated on profits and lower when taken on revenue. Obviously, if we calculate our benchmark on profits, then our percentage will be higher. And if we take on sales, the percentage will be lower. In small enterprises, there is the major portion of the profit is generally taken away by the promoters or proprietors or partners in form of interest, remunerations, or anything paid to their relatives. So to judge materiality level, we have to normalize it by adding their remuneration, interest, and other commissions and etc., which has been taken away by them. In case of government bodies, financial statements are used for social development decision rather than economic decision. So materiality level is influenced by legislative and regulatory environment. Performance materiality. Performance materiality is the amount set below the materiality level to reduce an appropriately low level the probability that aggregate of the uncorrected and undetected misstatement exceeds materiality as a whole. इसको एक एग्जांपल से बताता हूँ. सपोज एक क्रिकेट में मैंने 200 रन बनाए गेम में, तो अब जब मेरे बॉलिंग की चांस आई तो मैं ये कोशिश करूंगा कि सामने वाला 199 पे आउट हो जाए. लेकिन अगर मैं उसमें अपना परफॉर्मेंस मेंटालिटी एक लोअर लेवल पर रख दूं कि 150 ही मेरा टारगेट है, तो क्या होगा कि मैं 150 पे सामने वाले को आउट करना चाहूंगा. अब उसमें ऐसा भी हो सकता है कि वो 160 या 170 पे जाए, लेकिन मेरी सारी कंसंट्रेशन 150 पे रहेगा. सो टू रीच द चांस ऑफ 200 is very much reduced. So in the case of performance materiality, for example, my materiality level is 1% of the revenue, and I have set 70% of the materiality to a performance materiality, or say for an account as a whole, I will vouch for materiality level, and in an account, I will vouch for performance materiality under that account, so that my all major transactions are covered. If there are certain class of transactions, account balance or disclosure for which misstatement of lesser amount than the materiality for the financial statement as a whole could reasonably expected to influence the economic decision of the user taken on the basis of material statement, The auditor shall also determine the materiality level to those particular class of transaction, account, balance, or disclosure. Our essay says materiality is set for a financial statement as a whole. But if in a particular class of transaction, account, balance, or disclosure, we can set a lower level of materiality also. Materiality is not a thing which is once fixed, is fixed for the whole audit. It can be revised depending upon the nature of transaction and experience gained during the audit. We can revise it. Materiality is also specified in other accounting principles like relevance. Materiality information influence the economic decision of the user and is therefore relevant to their need. Reliability, omission or misstatement of an important piece of information impair user ability to make correct decision taken on the basis of financial statement, thereby affecting reliability of information. Completeness, information contained in the financial statement must be complete in all material respect in order to present a true and fair view of the affairs of the company. Now, documentation part, materiality for the what we have designed, materiality for the financial statement as a whole, materiality for the particular class of transaction, account, balance, or disclosure, performance materiality, any revision to above. These four basic lines I have extracted from the standards on auditing, which can be applied very easily to our firms. I've drawn a chart for materiality performance and my performance materiality for financial statement. Like first, we have to document chosen benchmark. Like what is it? It is based on revenue, profit before tax, equity, whatever it is. And in front of that, we have to write why it is chosen. Benchmark balance, say we have taken revenue, then what is the value of revenue? What is the percentage implied? What will be the materiality? The level of materiality calculated in D is somewhat rounded off. Aggregate of anticipated, uncorrected, undetected statement. From the previous experience, we can find that how much misstatement was there in earlier statement so that we can have a look on this current year. And after that, we can calculate performance materiality. For example, say we have taken revenue as a benchmark. Our benchmark balance is 10 crores. The revenue of the firm was 10 crore. Percentage implied 1%. Calculated materiality 10 lakhs, 1% of 10 crores. Materiality in D is defined and rounded off. I have taken, say, 9 lakhs will be my materiality level. Aggregate of and anticipated, corrected, undetected statement. I found that 90,000 was my previous experience that there was a misstatement. So I've drawn performance materiality at the level of 8,10,000. So my next level of materiality will be 8,10,000. In our legal framework also, somewhere materiality levels are also described, like in Companies Act, Schedule 3, level of materiality 1% of the profit income from operation, received from operation, or 1 lakh, whichever is more. Say in a related party disclosure AS10, AS18, there is a clause that in a particular class of transaction, we can group the level of transaction which is up to 10% of the total transaction in that class. This was the my deliberation about materiality. Now I will move to audit sampling. Materiality, हर ट्रांजेक्शन हम कोई भी काम 100% वाउचिंग से नहीं कर सकते क्योंकि सारा ट्रांजेक्शन को वाउच करना अपने आप में एक डिफिकल्ट हो जाता है, इसलिए ऑडिट सैम्पलिंग करना पड़ता है. इवन वी आर वाउचिंग 999 transaction out of 100 item, even then audit sampling is there because there can be a misstatement in one item which is left out. Application of audit procedure to less than 100% of the item within a population of audit relevance such that all sampling unit have a chance of selection in order to provide the auditor with reasonable basis on which to draw conclusion about the entire population. So we have to find leader in a group who will speak for the whole group. Sampling risks that auditor conclusion may be different from the conclusion if all items were subject to the same audit procedure. There may be a sampling risk that our material misstated item has been left out. Every audit has two aspects. One is test of control and other is substantive testing, that is test of details. I have created a chart. What will happen if erroneous conclusions are taken by the auditor? In case 1, test of controls were more, auditor sees that it is more effective, but in actual it was less effective. And in case of test of detail, material misstatement does not exist as pursued by the auditor, but material misstatement was existing. What will be the result? Inappropriate opinion and effect audit effectiveness. Case 2, test of control was, as auditor perceived, was less effective, but it was more effective. Test of control, auditor sees that material misstatement exists, but in actual it doesn't exist. What will happen? It will lead to additional work and reduce efficiency. Non-sampling risk. Due to inappropriate audit procedure or misinterpretation of audit evidence and failure to recognize a misstatement or deviation, like working with incompetent person, failure to understand the operating environment, poor knowledge of regulatory framework, like in case of banking, insurance, power generating, listed company. Misstatement was there, but we are not able to read it, then it will be a non-sampling risk. However, it was there in our population, but we have not concluded it properly. Now, selection of population. The selection of samples should be based on homogeneous data. Homogeneous data is a data which is generated from similar processes like sales, purchase, accounts receivable. If we have to select data from sales, then the population should be derived from sales register only, not sales and purchase as a combined. In sales, we can also further subgroup, like we can divide it into location wise, say credit sales and cash sales are different, B2B, B2C sales are different. There was a case in which say few sales was computerized and few sales was manually made. Then these two combination of these two sales will not be called a homogeneous data. We have to segregate computerized sales and manual sales because both the sales do not generate similar characteristics. Tolerable misstatement. While working with sampling, we have to ascertain what should be the tolerable misstatement. What should be the level on which we can accept the misstatement. The monetary amount set by auditor in respect of which the auditor seeks to obtain an appropriate level of assurance that the monetary amount set by the auditor is not exceeded by the actual misstatement in the population. This tolerance amount can be same or lower than the performance materiality, or it can be said in synonym. Tolerable rate of deviation. The rate of deviation from prescribed internal control procedures set by the auditor in respect of which the auditor seeks to obtain an appropriate level of assurance that the rate of deviation set by the auditor is not exceeded by the actual rate of deviation in the population. I will go with the example of this also. Now, how to work with sample selection. Auditing sampling enables the auditor to obtain and evaluate audit evidence about some characteristic of item selected in order to assist in forming a conclusion concerning the population from which the sample is drawn. Design of sample, specific purpose to be achieved, and combination of audit procedures that is likely to best achieve the purpose. Decision to use statistical or non-statistical sampling approach is matter for auditor judgment. Our sample size is not a valid criteria to distinguish between statistical and non-statistical approaches. Two types of methods are prescribed. One is statistical and other is non-statistical. Statistical sampling deals with random mathematical selection with use of probability theory. It may be random selection or systematic selection. In case of random selection, we generate a random number against the data and pick according to the random number generated by the system. Or it may be a systematic selection, like nth item after every item, say every 10th item, every 15th item. In a non-statistical sampling, no mathematical calculation is implemented. It can be a haphazard selection or judgmental selection. In haphazard, there is no base. In judgmental selection, we say pick up top 10 item, top 100 item, like that. What is the benefit of statistical sampling? Provides an objective, mathematically precise basis. We have a mathematical calculation. Nobody can challenge on it. Why some data was not checked. Size can be calculated precisely. We can know how much data is to be extracted. Mandatory to opt out in large size of data. In large size of data, we cannot go for judgmental or haphazard sampling. What will the benefit and demerits of this? We will be requiring training and technical expertise, investment in training. Sample may be larger than the judgmental selection. Now, stratification. The process of dividing a population into subpopulation, each of which is a group of sampling unit which have similar characteristics, which I have discussed earlier also, like in sales, how to extract data, which have common characteristics. One value-weighted selection is also prescribed in our standards, that every item of the sampling unit is given an individual monetary unit which makes up that data, and we are choosing the data on the basis of incremental weighted given to every next data. I will discuss this on the Excel worksheet also. Now, how to project misstatement. The auditor is required to project misstatement for the population to obtain a broad view of the scale of the misstatement, but this projection may not be sufficient to determine an amount to be recorded. Anomaly should be excluded while projecting the misstatement, but effect of any such misstatement, if uncorrected, still needs to be considered in addition to the projection of non-anomalous statement. Anomaly is a misstatement or deviation that is demonstrably not representative of misstatement or deviation in a population. Suppose if we take a population and we find a mistake which is not related to that population, then it is called anomaly. It is taken as a whole, but not for projecting the percentage of misstatement which a statement may have. Evaluating results of audit sampling. In case of test of control, an unexpectedly high sample deviation rate may lead to an increase of assessed risk of material misstatement unless further audit evidence substantiating the initial assessment is obtained. Because in test of control, we see the working, not the micro levels. So if you increase the sample deviation rate, more size of the control will be left out. In case of test of detail, projected misstatement plus anomalous misstatement is the auditor's best estimate of misstatement in the population. When the projected misstatement plus anomalous misstatement exceeds the tolerable misstatement, the sample does not provide a reasonable basis for conclusion about the population that has been tested. The closer the projected misstatement plus anomalous misstatement is to tolerable misstatement, the more likely that the actual misstatement in the population may exceed tolerable misstatement. Also, if the projected misstatement is greater than the auditor's expectation of misstatement used to determine the sample size, the auditor may conclude that there is an unacceptable sampling risk that the actual misstatement in the population exceeds the tolerable misstatement, and the risk may be reduced if additional audit evidence is obtained. If the auditor concludes that audit sampling has not provided a reasonable basis for conclusion about the population that has been tested, the auditor may request the management to investigate misstatement that has been identified and the potential for further misstatement, and to make necessary adjustment, tailor the nature, timing, and extent of those further audit procedures to best achieve the required assistance. Now, I am taking up a audit sampling working. Is my screen visible? Is my screen visible?
Yes, sir, it is visible.
Excel file.
1 minute. Yes, sir.
So there is a sales data. I have stratified this data into ranges. Say sale below 10,000, 10 to 35. After every 25,000, I have created a gap. Okay. Now I see that this is my stratified data. Out of this data, I can see that 85,000 to 185,000. These are very less 34 data only. So I can go for 100% vouching for checking for this item. And my major data lies between this item, 10, up to 35,000. So in this, I can draw a greater sample size so that major portion is covered. Now, second item was weighted, value weighted system. Say I have to pick out 100 samples out of this sales data. I have taken value weight size, total sales divided by 100. So one weight is 257,358. I have decided to start my data from 4 lakhs. What I have done here is, this is sales amount. In D column, there is a cumulative total of sales. I will pick my data from this cumulative sales. I have to start from 4 lakhs. My first testing data will lie between 4 lakh plus 257. This one, 657. The data which is lying under 657 of range will be my test data, this one. Next data will be 914716. I have added my value weight data to that above one, 257. Now next will be 3860 here. This will be my next sampling item. Likewise, I will extend this data to 100 item and I will find which sales data I have to check. Now to assess the overall materiality, say I have a sales of 1 crores, which is my population. I have set my performance materiality to 20 lakhs. Sample size is 10 lakhs. And error found is 150, 1,50,000. Now I will project my rate, population divided by sample size, it is 10%. So the projected error will be 150 into 10, 15 lakhs. And my performance materiality was 20 lakhs. So I need not to worry. This can be accepted. We'll take the case 2. My error found was 2,25,000. The projected error will be into 10, 20 lakh, 22 lakh 50,000. Now this 22 50,000 is more than my performance materiality. Then this is not accepted. I have to increase my audit extent. Now how to reduce the sampling risk? We will revise the sample size to 20 lakhs. Earlier it was 10 lakhs. Now I will judge it on this new sample size. My projected rate is 5. Error found was 1,10,000. Projected error will be 1 lakh this one and 2,25,000 in earlier one. Because this additional is due to increased sample size. Now my new projected error is 3,35,000. Now projected error will be 335 into 5, which is 16,75,000. That means which is below my performance materiality. Then it can be accepted. So by increasing the sample size, I have reduced my projection error. Take another case. There was an anomaly error of 80,000. Anomaly which I discussed was error which is not related to that sample, but some other things which you find during the course of say sales vouching. And actual sales vouching was error was 1,60,000. So my projected error will be based on normal error, not anomaly error. So 1,60,000 into 10, 16 lakhs, and I will add anomaly into it. Then total error will become 16,18,000. Now this 16,18,000 is below my performance materiality. So this can be accepted. By making this type of paper, we can demonstrate our materiality level and working, that anything left beyond these materiality levels are not very much concerned in our audit working, and other things are our on more relevant levels. Arunji, I have finished my presentation.
Thank you, Anurag sir. Now we are having question answer session. I request every participant to please drop your query in chat box.
Arunji, there are a couple of questions which I will attend.
Yes, sir.
Whether engagement letter applicable for work relating to certification? I think so that is the first one when I scroll down. Yeah, so as far as certification work is concerned, I would just like to highlight, I'll just once again share my screen. Friends, the ICI has come out with a guidance note on reports for certificates for special purposes, which was revised in 2016. I'll move straight to the illustration for want of time. So this is the certificate format which we have to use. Right, that हम लोग जो पहले देते थे something like a net worth certificate सीधा या turnover certificate or whatever we used to give. Now, since after 2016, the whole format of our certificate is more or less like what we give in our audit report. So first of all, if I look, there has to be an address कि हम लोग किसको address कर रहे हैं certificate देने के time. Certificate का title आएगा कि भाई ये certificate किसके बारे में है, क्या है इसमें. Then this report is issued in engagement letter agreement. So this answers that yes, for a certificate there has to be a separate engagement letter or an agreement other than जो audit के लिए discuss किया था वो छोड़ के for this specific certification assignment there has to be an appointment letter as well as an engagement letter. फिर we would have the details about what we are certifying. Then the management responsibility for the statement. Thereafter the practitioner's responsibility. Auditor word इसमें नहीं आता है because it is for any chartered accountant who would issue a certificate. So it is a practitioner's responsibility that would come. So this is a guidance note by the institute and therefore it is mandatory for us to follow this format. फिर opinion आता है that based on our examination we are opinion that the amounts in the statement, annual turnover or whatever has been accurately extracted from the audit. So ये जो certificate जिसके बारे में है, जो illustration है, उसका ये ओपिनियन पैराग्राफ है एंड फाइनली इज अ रिस्ट्रिक्शन ऑन यूज विच मीन्स दैट दिस पैराग्राफ आप सर्टिफिकेट जिसको दे रहे हो जो पर्पस के लिए दे रहे हो ये उसी के लिए यूज हो सकता है, कोई और पर्पस के लिए यूज नहीं हो सकता है. And if it is used for any other purpose, then as a chartered accountant, we do not accept or assume any liability or any duty of care. So this is the format that is now prescribed in the new this guidance note of 2016. Similarly, there are different illustrations. So I would recommend to all members that kindly refer to this guidance note of 2016 and issue all certificates as per this. One more thing I would just like to highlight is हम लोग जो discuss कर रहे थे, there is also this institute's publication on the practitioner's guide to audit of small entities. So we discussed a lot about the standards on audit for a practice units. Now this is a guide that is for the audit of small entities, which as the institute has announced as recently as 2020 at the beginning of this calendar year. And I'll just run through a couple of things जो हम लोग discuss कर रहे हैं तो उसी के related है. And if we follow these formats, a few of these formats also for our filing, for our documentation, for our process, that would be really a good headway into going towards a proper audit documentation. So ये model working papers है कि भाई आपका जो आप linking कर रहे हैं, if you see letter of appointment, so it is available in page number of permanent file पे है, working file में है, manual file में है, कौन सी file में है, आप उनको reference करके link भी कर रहे हो. इनिशियली आई वुड सजेस्ट, समझिए लिंकिंग भी नहीं होता है, बट एटलीस्ट यू टिक मार्क कि भाई आपके पास ये है, ये फाइल में है, आइदर इन सॉफ्ट कॉपी और इन हार्ड कॉपी. दैट आल्सो वुड बी द फर्स्ट स्टेप व्हिच वुड बी इंपॉर्टेंट. So you have a letter of appointment, you have a communication to previous auditor in case there is a change, profile of the client वो अलग से एक है, checklist है, engagement letter है, MRL letter है, सी planning controls, all these things are there. तो आप इसके बेसिस पे भी ये गाइडेंस नोट को फॉलो करेंगे तो इट वुड हेल्प अ लॉट इन अ प्रॉपर ऑडिट एज वेल एज अ प्रॉपर डॉक्यूमेंट. ये जो है इंफॉर्मेशन अबाउट द ऑडिटिंग विच आई वाज आल्सो मेंशनिंग, आप अगर ये परमानेंट फाइल में आप रखेंगे तो इट वुड हेल्प ईयर ऑन ईयर. ये आपके हर ऑडिट टीम मेंबर पढ़ के जाएं ऑडिट में, तो इट वुड हेल्प अ लॉट. सो अबाउट द कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन, कौन सा ऑडिट करना है, प्लेसेस ऑफ बिजनेस क्या है, कॉन्टैक्ट डिटेल्स सारे, रजिस्ट्रेशन डिटेल्स अंडर इनकम टैक्स एंड वेरियस लॉज, सर्विस टैक्स, जीएसटी, आईसी, बैंक अकाउंट्स, की पर्सन्स कौन है आपके कंपनी क्लाइंट में, उनका कॉन्टैक्ट नंबर डिटेल्स. देन नंबर 24, नेचर ऑफ बिजनेस, कोर एक्टिविटी क्या है उसका आप एक नोट बना के रखिए. ब्रीफ ऑन द मैन्युफैक्चरिंग प्रोसेस और बिजनेस एक्टिविटी उसका नोट है. मेन प्रोडक्ट, रॉ मटेरियल, मर्केंटाइल कैश, मेथड ऑफ बुक कीपिंग, कंप्यूटराइज तो क्या सॉफ्टवेयर है. सी ऑल these are 35 points, but this gives a good initial kickstart to understanding the business of the client. फिर ये applicability checklist है which we discussed on the engagement letter का format भी है इसमें, which can be replicated and maybe modified also if required. Then acceptance formalities, and see all these things are there as a checklist. Administration जो हम लोग बोल रहे थे, time budget, we talked about audit plan, so very similar thing is there. So I would suggest that members can refer to this also and to set up some of the good practices that can be followed. And like I said, that these are something which are very easy, relatively very easy to follow even by a small and medium practitioner. Next question, what should be done in non-moving creditors where client says this will restart the period of limitation?
It is related to confirmations. Client is not giving the confirmation letter of creditors, as they are saying if you'll sign the confirmation letter, the period of limitation will.
Yeah, so okay, I understand. वो डरते हैं कि भाई मेरा liability आ जाएगा, मेरे को नहीं देना है, फिर भी मेरे को देना पड़ेगा, वो बोलते हैं. See, that is why I said that this we should have as a practice every year. See, इसमें क्या होता है, जो हमने डिस्कस किया different ways, methodologies in which we can shortlist. So even one of the methodologies is about overdue debtors and creditors. समझिए कोई क्रेडिटर है जिसको 1 साल से भी आपने पैसा नहीं दिया है, then why wait till 3 years? You know, you get a confirmation because you see a pattern कि आपके जो client है वो सबको payment कर दे रहे हैं except 1 or 2 parties जिसको नहीं दिया है. You know, then so you can understand कि भाई क्या dispute है, कोई communication है आपके पास, नहीं है, material नहीं आया है, material dispute. You can go into those reasoning and then you can ascertain कि भाई ये अपने को confirmation के लिए भेजना है या नहीं भेजना है. In my opinion, भेजना ही चाहिए because many things would come out once we send the confirmation. And what happens is we wait for 3 years और उसके बाद confirmation भेजते हैं तो definitely this challenge comes. Therefore, that is where I said that we should start this practice कि हर साल creditors or debtors, loans, advances जो भी है अपने को, we should, even in case of deposits, we have a practice that वो photocopy of the deposit receipt हम लोग रखते हैं. अभी I'll give a very simple example. जैसे मैन्युफैक्चरिंग में वगैरह में होता है, I think all of you would be coming under DGVCL, right? Surat would be, or it's under Torrent maybe. So what would happen कि भाई हम लोग देखते हैं electricity deposit, right? अभी electricity deposit का क्या confirmation है? If you see the invoice of the deposit amount लिखा हुआ रहता है. Now, as an audit procedure, I would suggest that you can match that with the amount that you are showing as an asset, as a receivable. Mismatches I have seen when we do this exercise, especially जब new clients हमारे आते हैं, I have seen a mismatch. या तो we have paid something as a deposit which in earlier years has been written off as an expense and therefore invoice में ज्यादा amount दिखाते हैं, हम लोग के books में कम दिखाते हैं. There might be a vice versa situation also कि books में ज्यादा दिखा रहे हैं, invoice में कम दिखा रहा है, because there would be certain payments made to the electric company which they have considered as a income of theirs and not as a deposit. So see, this is also a type of a confirmation, external confirmation हो जाता है invoice पे ही. So all these are methods. As far as the query was concerned, it is, I feel, required that we should do on a annual basis, and even 3 साल का है, so we should understand कि भाई ये क्यों outstanding है, but that should not, I would say, make us avoid a particular party कि ये मेरा payable हो जाएगा. The next on the chat is share this PPT. Yeah, sure, I would be happy. But जो भी PPT अरुण जी आप जिसके साथ शेयर करें ना, उससे थोड़ा कंफर्मेशन ले लीजिएगा कि ये लोग सब ये इम्प्लीमेंट करेंगे. Whatever Anurag and I have suggested, that is वो बोलते हैं ना, वो स्टार लगा के conditions apply. So that is what Anurag and I would say, that we want members के वो implement करें, then we would share.
Standards on auditing गीता की तरह है, पढ़ो तो गीता की तरह ज्ञान मिल जाता है, नहीं तो बुक शेल्फ में लगी रहती है.
Yeah. Can we get a copy of all specimen, engagement letter, audit program, etc. on our email, word copy? It will be great help. Sure, I would definitely. You have my on the PPT. My email ID and mobile number are there. You can message to me, mail to me. I would be more than happy to share. And Arunji, with your, I will share the PPT with the branch which you can circulate. As far as the other formats are concerned, let us try that we go on a need-based basis. Anurag and myself, let us see actually किसको implement करने की इच्छा है. Let them come forward. They will send a mail to you. I don't mind, and then I will forward it to you. You can send it to them, or they can mail to me directly. तो अपने को पता चलेगा that people are actually interested उसी को दे, and we would like those numbers to swell actually as a professional, I would say.
Yes, sure.
सर प्रैक्टिकली इस बार क्या हुआ, बैंक्स में मैंने एंगेजमेंट लेटर भेजे तो वो बोलते हैं कि और सीए तो कोई मांगता नहीं, आप ही ने मांगा.
I know. So let us be trendsetters, Anurag. I really appreciate. Let us be trendsetters, and so this is the platform where we have to, see. I'll be very, very candid. अपने जितना Anurag, like I said, जितने members के साथ interact करते, they have the basic knowledge of standards on audit, क्योंकि audit तो सब कर रहे हैं. But उसके backup में सब क्या करना है, क्या चाहिए, क्या नहीं चाहिए, that is where I say we are a step backward, and we should use these platforms and encourage members कि भाई अब जैसे बैंक ऑडिट का प्रोग्राम होता है या बैंक ऑडिट का कुछ भी होता है, आप बोलिए कि भाई एंगेजमेंट लेटर आपको बनाना है और देना है, although appointment is there. So all these things we need to educate and inculcate as a part of our process. Compulsory जैसे NOC एक process हो गया है, तो without NOC हम लोग start नहीं करते हैं audit. So similarly, all these things also we should have part of the process.
सर एंगेजमेंट लेटर को मैंने अपने सर्टिफिकेशन वर्क में यूज किया, लास्ट 1 ईयर से कर रहा हूँ. मुझे ये पता चला है, पहले तो सर्टिफिकेट आ जाते थे कि बस सर साइन कर दो, अभी साइन पहले कराता हूँ तो दे टेक कॉग्निशंस कि इसमें क्या लिखा हुआ है.
हाँ, exactly. और इसीलिए अरुण जी, if you remember, I had mentioned right at the beginning that members, please audit report पढ़िए आप एक बार, वर्ड टू वर्ड, कि आप क्या क्या assurances दे रहे हैं और उसके रिलेटेड आपके पास सपोर्टिंग में क्या है प्रूव करने के लिए that your assurance is proper. You automatically आपके सब फाइलिंग और डॉक्यूमेंट सही हो जाएंगे.
सर अगर एक लीगली चीज डिस्कस करें, जो हमारी ऑडिट रिपोर्ट है जिसमें हम मैनेजमेंट रिस्पांसिबिलिटी क्लॉज देते हैं, तो अपना ऑडिट रिपोर्ट हम साइन करते हैं, क्लाइंट साइन नहीं करता, तो एक चैलेंज हो सकता है कि मैनेजमेंट की रिस्पांसिबिलिटी जो हमने डिफाइन करी है उसका हमारे पास कोई प्रूफ नहीं है, एग्जिस्टेंस नहीं है. Exactly. True. Yeah, Arun ji, back to you. I think there are no further questions. At least none on the chat box.
Yes, sir. Is there any more question from participant? Please.
Yeah, members can even unmute and ask if they want to. Typing में थोड़ा बहुत difficulty होती है, तो we would be more than happy, Anurag and myself.
I have a question, Vishal sir. Can I? Yes. मेरा क्वेश्चन ये है कि मेरा एक ऑडिट था वापी में, उसके लिए मैं गया था और वहाँ पे हमने एक मटेरियलिटी लेवल सेट किया था, एंड फिर क्या हुआ कि वी फाउंड समथिंग इनसिग्निफिकेंट बट वेरी मच अमाउंट वाइज इनसिग्निफिकेंट बट वाज वेरी सिग्निफिकेंट फ्रॉम अ फाइंडिंग पॉइंट ऑफ व्यू. तो हमने मटेरियलिटी चेंज की और वो ऑडिट करीबन 12 दिन चला और उसमें हमने 3 या 4 बार मटेरियलिटी चेंज की. तो इट विल क्रिएट अ नेगेटिव इंप्रेशन फ्रॉम अकाउंटेंट्स एंड डायरेक्टर्स पॉइंट ऑफ व्यू. तो क्या हमें ये चीज करनी चाहिए मतलब वो जो लोगों को टॉर्चरिंग लगता है या फिर मटेरियलिटी चेंज करने से जो इम्प्रेशन हमारी खराब होती है, तो इज दैट ओके और वी शुड बी स्टिकिंग टू वन मटेरियलिटी लेवल व्हिच इज डिसाइडेड इन 1 or 2 टाइम? दैट्स
See, Keyur bhai, how I would look at it is that initially that the materiality levels or the threshold that you fixed were as per the standards on audit requirement, which Anurag bhai very clearly demonstrated. Now there are certain findings, right? Now those findings with respect to material misstatement or like you said, amount was insignificant, but it might be a technical issue, right?
Yes.
Now that technical issue, it is the responsibility, and that is where the engagement letter and all comes handy, that all those things are actually the responsibility of the management.
Okay.
समझिए अकाउंटिंग का जो एंट्री का जो स्टाइल है, एंट्री का जो प्रोसेस है, या जो पॉलिसी लिया है, या आई वुड से वेरी सिंपल थिंग्स, बेसिक थिंग्स लाइक ईयर एंड के कट ऑफ प्रोसीजर्स प्रॉपर्ली फॉलो नहीं हुए हैं, राइट? So what happens is that responsibility is of the management. Now, if management has not fulfilled their responsibility, therefore we have to change our materiality levels.
Okay.
Hello.
You have to see why you are changing it. It is not because of your finding, definitely. But वो finding अगर उन्होंने proper किया होता तो आपके original materiality level पे आपका सब clear हो गया होता.
Agree, sir. Agree.
So that is what you need to communicate. See, I didn't take that standard. I didn't take that standard for want of time. But again, a very, very important standard is communication with those charged with governance.
Okay.
We are having so many friends over here, and therefore I would make it relevant and important that please ensure that you interact with the owners, those charged with governance of your client. हम लोग के यहाँ पे क्या होता है that small enterprises, जब small clients होते हैं, उनके accountant होते हैं, part time होते हैं, जो भी होता है, हमारे टीम मेंबर उनके accountant के साथ बैठ के queries solve कर देते हैं, resolve कर देते हैं, and then it ends over there.
Correct.
My suggestion is that we have to take a review of that. उसमें जो major points है, although corrected, we have to escalate and take it to the client right at the top कि ये सब ऐसे mistakes हुए थे जो हमारी टीम ने correction करवाए. You kindly ensure ये henceforth नहीं होते हैं. Or you might even talk about an improvisation in the overall processes of the client. कोई control related है, you need to ensure that you communicate all these things to the client. मैं अभी commercially बोलूँ, see, this was from a standard on audit process which is mandatory. Commercially also, the value addition that you are doing, that has to be reaching the person who is going to decide your fees.
Agree, sir. Agree.
See, clients ऐसा सोचते हैं, I'm not talking to anybody कि भाई ठीक है ऑडिट है ना, वो तो टैक्स इनकम टैक्स की रिक्वायरमेंट है, तो आप आइए ऑडिट करिए एंड साइन ऑफ एंड यू गो अवे, तो ठीक है, उसमें क्या है, आपके बच्चे आते हैं, हो जाता है, यू नो. They don't understand the type of value addition that we do, and it is very, very important as a profession. All of us ensure that we communicate with those people that this is all the value addition that we have been doing.
Agree, sir. Okay, fine.
Hello.
Yes, Ashok sir.
Hello.
Yes, Ashok sir. बोलिए sir.
Sir, I upload all financial statement of accounts and tax audit report by utilizing CS digital signature and client's digital signature. All profit and loss account and balance sheet are also used by digital signature to be signed by the client. So will it do?
I could not understand exactly. What we are saying is that we are going to sign, we are not going to physically sign, but digitally sign, right?
Yes, exactly.
Yes, sir. Now, see, that is permitted. That is permitted under this situation specifically. And if you see, our institute has also come out with that relaxation that as auditors, you can digitally sign the financial statements.
Sir, CA can sign, but client's signature is needed in physical.
Clients should also digitally sign, sir.
Okay, thank you, sir.
So if you see, sir, if you see many of the listed companies जो results online अभी upload हुए stock exchange की site में अगर आप जाएंगे, then you will see that many of these financial statements by the managing director or whosoever has been digitally signed, and the auditors in their audit report has also affixed the digital signature.
Okay.
So that is possible, that is permissible.
Permissible. Okay, thank you, sir.
But
Very
sir,
kind of you.
Sir, one thing. Please ensure that there is no difficulty as far as UDIN is concerned. because what happens is when you affix a digital signature, आपका
हाँ,
डेट और टाइम आ जाता है उसमें.
अच्छा,
तो
very good.
तो एक बार वो दे, because see many times what happens that there is a time lag. So ये सब members है, I can discuss this, that there is a time lag. तो अगर आपने साइन समझिए आज के डेट में किया है, आप 2 दिन बाद यूडीन जनरेट करते हैं तो कोई प्रॉब्लम नहीं है.
अच्छा,
बट रिवर्स नहीं होना चाहिए कि आज आपने यूडीन जनरेट कर लिया है. See what happens, I'll take a very typical situation. Let us say 14th of July आपने यूडीन जनरेट कर लिया है, वहां पे साइनिंग डेट 14 जुलाई प्रिंट कर दी है. वो क्लाइंट समझे फॉर सम टेक्निकल थिंग और समथिंग वो साइन होके आपके पास आता है 15 जुलाई को या 16 जुलाई को, और आप डिजिटल सिग्नेचर अफिक्स करते हैं तो आपके सिग्नेचर में 16 जुलाई आ जाएगा, यूडीन का डेट 14 जुलाई आ जाएगा, विच इज नॉट परमिटेड.
अच्छा,
So just ensure that we do a proper internal control, I would say, over here when we use the technology.
yes, yes, yes,
सर डिजिटल
very
साइन
good.
में एक प्रॉब्लम
Thank
और भी होगी कि डिजिटल साइन तो आपके पास मिलेगा और पता चलेगा क्लाइंट फॉरेन में घूम रहा है.
अभी तो मे बी कोविड सिचुएशन में फॉरेन कोई जाएगा नहीं, तो एटलीस्ट दिस ईयर वी आर होपफुली सेफ unless somebody is already there.
Yes, any more question? So, sir, shall we conclude?
Yep.
Thank you so much, Vishal sir, for your valuable inputs and guidance on standard auditing and its implementation. और सर जो आपने स्टार्टिंग में कहा था एक ग्रुप फॉर्म करने के लिए, तो हम ब्रांच पक्का ग्रुप फॉर्म करेंगे. एंड थैंक यू सो मच सर. फर्दर अनुराग जी, मैं आपको भी बहुत धन्यवाद देना चाहूंगा. थैंक यू सो मच फॉर गिविंग अस इनसाइट ऑन मटेरियलिटी एंड ऑडिट सैम्पलिंग. थैंक यू सो मच सर. एंड ऑल्सो आई वांट टू थैंक्स ऑल द पार्टिसिपेंट for the constant and patient listening. Thank you so much, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
अरुण जी, आप ग्रुप बनाए तो डोंट गेट डिसहार्टेंड बाय द नंबर्स. 10 है तो 10, बट चालू करवाइएगा.
Sure, sir. Sure, sir. We'll
ये टॉपिक ही ऐसा है. एंड आई वुड रिक्वेस्ट, सिंस ब्रांच वुड बी टेकिंग सो मच एफर्ट्स, ऑल दोस पार्टिसिपेंट्स ओवर हियर, प्लीज इंश्योर दैट यू रजिस्टर. कुछ आप सीखेंगे, दैट इज माय गारंटी.
Oh, yeah, right, sir. Thank you so much.
Thanks everybody. Thanks.
थैंक यू.
Bye bye.